My wife. That's what else. Good. Good. $17 hours. I'm too tired. We gotta look at it. You don't slow down, read them. How are you? Good. How are you? Hey, you know what? You're the best part of my anyway. Senior, before I ask, please to meet you.
We ready to go?
I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just the.
Oh. Okay, good evening, everyone. We're calling to order the July 11th meeting of the Southborough Select Board. And Mimi, do you want to call your meeting to order first? And then we'll see if there's any public comment before we go into the continued tree hearing.
I call the meeting of the Southborough Planning Board to order.
Okay, the first item on our agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody who wishes to speak to an item which is not on the agenda to offer a brief comment. Okay. Hello? I don't have my computer up. Oh, okay. Hi, Patty. How are you?
I'm well. How are you? You hear me?
Good. Yes.
So I have a really quick question for you. Quite a few months ago, when the paving schedule, paving process was put out and things were prioritized, there was some questions about Parkerville Road and when that was going to be paved. And in talking to some of you guys back then, I was told Parkerville was on the priority list. And the last time I looked at the schedule, which was probably a week or so ago, it still says in it that it's not scheduled at all. I did get the memo that they're paving Trottier, I think this week or this weekend or something. And I'm just wondering, what is the status of paving Parkerville Road? I think it's kind of an embarrassment to the town, and it really should be done while school is out, I would think.
I don't know, but we can look into it and get back to you. Okay.
I didn't hear what she said.
I said, I don't know, but we can certainly look into it and get back to you. Sam, do you want to speak? to this?
Andrew, I think that's part of the current paving project.
Yep.
That is now being done this summer here. I don't remember where it is on the
There's
list.
a list.
But,
Go to this road first,
yeah.
this road second. This road
That's
third.
on the list. So the expectation is that will be finished this summer by the current paving contractor.
Has that list been updated in the last week or so? Because the last time I looked, it did not have it scheduled. It was on the list.
But she's
there's no
right, it should be done
scheduled
during the
date.
summer because of school, so we should check and see where it is.
Okay, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Are there any other public comments online? Seeing none. Ms. Luttrell, I'd like to hand it over to you to kind of set the stage for this continued tree hearing.
This tree hearing was continued from June 20th, 2023, because there was additional information requested. And since that time, last Friday, there was a walk with arborists, several members of the planning board, I think at least one member of the select board. So I will ask those who were in attendance for that walk if they, wish to reconsider their vote or make any changes to the vote that was taken.
Thanks, Mimi. So one, I want to thank National Grid and the arborist Cliff, who came out and met us. I think it was extremely fruitful from a knowledge base. One of our concerns, or one of my concerns, was it was very difficult based on the arborist notes regarding the defect or condition listed on the trees that were town trees, public shade trees that were being asked to be removed. And I think there was a list of 30, 28, 27, 24. I had about 14 that I really needed to understand and appreciate. And I think the tour was extremely valuable for that. And I will be reconsidering my vote. Or we're creating a new vote.
Jesse speak?
Jesse, is it too long?
Jesse Stein, member of the planning board. I was not in attendance for the walk. Do you guys have any changes to your plan? Okay. I mean, I'm in support of the plan as submitted.
Debbie Demuria. I don't plan to change my vote on principle. I think that once the votes are taken, they are considered final. And so I don't plan to change my vote. Thanks.
Thank you. I thank National Grid. I thank the town arborist, well, the arborist that the town uses, Cliff. It's always very informational. I was not at the last meeting, but I do plan to support the removal of these trees based on the feedback and the walks that were done.
Okay. So a vote to reconsider would have to be moved by either one of the two that voted against the prior motion, so either Marnie or Debbie.
I make a motion to reevaluate the vote taken. Is that the right reconsider? I make a motion to reconsider the vote taken on the National Grid plan for tree mitigation.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, Latrell, yes.
Stein, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, no.
Brascio, yes.
So then we would need a motion.
So the motion is for the planning board to approve the National Grid Hazard Tree Mitigation Program as submitted.
Second.
I have a motion, excuse me, and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes.
Stein, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, no.
Brascio, yes.
So we are all set. Anything from the select board?
Okay, so I think it would be good if, just for the record, in 1 minutes, there's a record of both boards' positions. So is there anyone on the select board that is gonna reconsider the vote that they took before? No? Okay,
I do have one comment. I went on the walk as well, and I agree that all of those trees have serious problems, and I appreciate the patience that you gentlemen have shown. I did a calculation. The town owns a lot of right of way. How much do you think it is? It's over 220 acres of right of way. 220 acres is about 25% bigger than Chestnut Hill Farm. That's how much right of way we roughly own. About 30% of it is forested. That comes to more than 30,000 trees. Those trees grow every year. They grow on average of about 3,500 tons of new biomass every year. That's dry biomass, by the way. And so we are talking about removing somewhere between 50 and 100 tons. So we're only talking about removing something on the order of 2% of the new growth in 1 year. And this is a sort of a 5-year process. So I think this process needs a rethink. It seems like it's too fraught and painful for what should be, I think, we ought to let the arborists do their job.
okay, so I move that the select board approve the removal of the 24 trees as originally shown in National Grid's plan.
Removal and pruning.
Removal and pruning, that's right.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, so it carries from the select board too. And should we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Oh, yes, we need a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the planning board public hearing.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, Latrell, yes.
Stein, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
Now we need a motion to adjourn, Mr. Stein, before you run off.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, Latrell, yes.
Houlihan, yes.
Demiria, yes.
Brascio, yes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
And so I move that the select board also close the public hearing, but the tree removal,
Second.
all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is we have a poll hearing for 7-9 Walker Street. Mr. Purple, could you please read the notice of the public hearing?
The Southborough Select Board shall hold a public hearing Tuesday, July 11th, 2023 at 6:30 PM. Call of hearing, yeah, I'm sorry, call of hearing room at Southborough Townhouse, 17 Common Street, Southborough, Mass. Consider a petition by Mass Electric Company, National Grid, and Verizon New England Incorporated to install underground facilities and conduit on Walker Street. The meeting may also be listened to or viewed by the public through a link located at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings.
Okay, and do we have someone from National Grid here that would like to make a presentation? Okay, can we please bring him over? All right.
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Galvin.
Oh, hi. Sorry about that. Yes, I see the town of Southborough was doing some repaving on that road, and looks like they wanted it, according to the comments, untouched for the next few years. So for future underground services to House 7 and 9 Walker, they wanted to put this underground conduit and handhole in on that side of the road ahead of the road being finished.
Okay, and is there before we go to questions from the board, are there any butters that are in the online audience or here that wish to speak about this? Any questions from the board?
I just make a comment. This looks to be just underground activity, so it doesn't affect my usual question about sidewalks, so I'm fine.
Okay. Do we have I guess I'll make a motion to approve the how should I phrase it? The installation of underground facilities and the conduit on Walker Street as requested by National Grid.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? And I move that we close the public hearing for the poll hearing for 7-9 Walker Street.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, we are right on schedule for
Briefly.
For the 16-18 Meadow Lane poll hearing.
The Southborough Select Board shall hold a public hearing on Tuesday, July 11th, 2023, 6:35 PM in the McAuliffe Hearing Room, Southborough Townhouse, 17 Common Street, Southborough, Mass. To consider a petition by Mass Electric Company, National Grid, and Verizon New England Incorporated to install underground facilities and conduit on Meadow Lane. The meeting may also be listened to or viewed by the public through a link located at www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings.
We need to open the hearing then.
Yeah, so Mr. Galvin, I assume you're here for the
Yes, yep.
okay, for the Meadow Lane matter. Would you like to give a brief description of what you're looking to do here?
Sure. It's similar. This is for a new service to number 16. They wanted to present the city to have underground wires put in. I guess it's related to a new pole job out there for new pole installations. This may be the one I drove out there not too long ago. This may have already been paved out there. I'm not sure if it was this one or Walker. One of the roads is already done. But it's similar, bringing the underground conduit for services to feed that home for a new electrical service.
And anyone here wishes to speak to it? No? Okay. Any questions from the board?
Same comment as for the previous one for me.
I move that we approve the installation of underground facilities and conduit on Meadow Lane as shown in the hearing notice for the 1618 Meadow Lane poll hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. That is approved, and I move that we close the public hearing for the 1618 Meadow Lane matter.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, the next item on the agenda, Mr. Urbani, if you'd like to come forward at this time. And with Chief Newell is here as well. Chief, do you want to kind of begin and introduce Frank?
Should we wait for? Yeah.
Introduce
Okay.
make the introduction.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to talk to you. I'm here tonight to request that the board appoint Mr. Frank Urbani to the open position of police officer with the Southborough Police Department. We had advertised for a lateral transfer to fill an open position that we had from Officer Kevin Landry retiring. And Mr. Urbani, along with multiple candidates, was interviewed for the position. And Frank rose right to the top of the list. We had interviews with the sergeants and the lieutenant, and then the chief, myself, and the town administrator. So Frank is a post-certified police officer with over 26 years in the profession of law enforcement. He's been a dispatcher, a patrol officer, and is currently a sergeant with the Wellesley College Police Department. He brings a wealth of knowledge and experience with him to this new position that we're hoping that he can fill. He's been through a host of specialized training to include active shooter, crowd management, sexual assault investigator, RAD instructor, and diversity and sensitivity. He is also a certified EMT. So he was appointed as the coordinator for the Wellesley College's Community Policing Outreach Program. And during his background check, we spoke to the chief and the deputy chief, and they described Frank as they stated that he is a constant community engagement, constantly in community engagement. And they stated that he was a hard worker, a self-initiator, and he is a helper. So Frank is here if you have any questions. But again, I am just requesting that he be appointed to this open position. Thank you.
So Mr. Urbani, would you got a very nice introduction there from Chief Newell. Anything you'd like to add, or just tell us a little bit about yourself and what attracted you to the town of Southborough?
Well, kind of a funny story. I recently endured a right hip replacement. And just before I went out to have that surgery, I've worked part-time in Ashland as a auxiliary police officer turned traffic officer. About a year ago, they discontinued the auxiliary police force because of the police reform situation. But the reason I had gone to Ashland was because I noticed that Wellesley was starting to go in a different direction. They were doing less community engagement, and that genuinely is what my passion is in the police field, is engaging the community, building trust, and just having constant dialogue and conversations about difficult topics. So that's pretty much what I did at Wellesley College. But as I saw our rules were reducing because of the national climate and so on and so forth, and certain people and leaders at Wellesley College thought it would be a good idea to have the police interact less. And I thought that was the exact opposite of what we should be doing. I think we should be doing more, like overly more, to prove to the public that, we are a positive resource. And I really, truly believe that. So I was working the detail through Ashland. In Southborough, I ran into Lieutenant Sean McCarthy, and I just got talking to him, and I asked him if he was the chief, because he was wearing some gold pins on him, and he said, no. He goes, in fact, I'm a newly appointed lieutenant. And I go, oh, congratulations. And I go, do you like working in Southborough? He's like, why you ask? And that was the beginning of what brought me here today.
Great. Well, he is a goodwill ambassador.
Yeah, he definitely sold the police department. And then from that point forward, I started like tuning into Facebook and which I dabble, but I don't really engage on Facebook, but I started looking at Southborough and I was looking at, the officers visiting the old folks homes and, and schools and like, that's my shtick, that's something that I will enjoy doing going forward, so I started visiting officers on details, asking questions, and here I am.
All right. Well, you got a chance here to meet the five of us. Mr. Hamilton, you want to begin?
This is the newbie end. Need more people to know what they're doing.
I'll join your group. Thank you.
I only had one question for you. The Southborough Youth and Family Services likes to do a lot of outreach into the community about mental health issues. So they might be a good point for you to contact with,
Sure.
which, because it's an ongoing, as I know, a lot of the calls that police answer are mental health.
Yes.
Emergencies,
I have
so-
lots of experience with mental health calls at Wellesley College.
I bet you do. Anyway, I'm Marguerite Landry. I'm also new. So
Pleasure to meet you.
anyway, thanks. Welcome aboard.
Thanks. I'm Sam Stivers. I've been on the board a little longer than these folks, but not too much. Sounds like your background is excellent, and it's great to have somebody who's actually been through all the training programs and so forth, so we don't have to wait for you to go back through whatever the required training is. So you hit the ground running, and I think this is a great function. Community outreach is something that I don't think we can do enough of, actually.
Yeah.
So it's a great fit here, and welcome aboard. Thank you.
Very much.
So welcome. I like what you said. I like that you met Sean McCarthy. That's great. So good for him to recruit you and good for you to do the due diligence that you did. And I agree with Sam. I love the community outreach background that you have. I also have great faith in your chief. We have just a lot of respect for Chief Newell. So if he recommends you, that is absolutely good enough for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the Facebook outreach that you're mentioning, that's really a lot of credit goes to Chief Newell for engaging with the community and letting everyone know about it. So welcome, and I think we look forward to working with you. And I move that we appoint Frank Urbani as a full-time police officer.
Second,
All those in favor?
congratulations.
All right,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
You get your whole family? Okay. So the next item we have on the agenda is, we have two appointments to consider to the Community Preservation Commission. And so this was a later addition to the agenda, and let me just explain here. I had a conversation with Ben Smith, who I think is the new chair of CPC earlier today, and just reviewing kind of the whole situation here. So as of right now, there are actually, this is a 9-person committee, of which there are, after June 30th, there are only 4 appointed members. So there are 7 designated appointments, 1 member of Historical Commission, Mr. Farrington, 1 member of the Housing Authority, vacant, 1 member of the Conservation Commission, that's Mr. Smith, 1 member of the Planning Board, Ms. Braccio, 1 member of the Recreation Commission, Kirsten Laval. And Open Space Preservation Commission seat is currently vacant. 1 member of Shopsy, that's vacant, and then there's 2 at-large positions. So, and I think these are 1 year at a time, appointments for 1 year at a time.
No, there's.
Okay.
Yeah, they're staggered, I believe.
They're staggered, okay.
So that's 5 that are seated.
No, there's 4 who are currently there's no at-large, no ShopC, no open space, and no housing authority. The only 4 that are on are historical, conservation commission, planning, and recreation.
Yeah, 3-year terms.
3-year terms. I'm sorry, it's right in front of me. Okay. So with that said, I got an email from, Mr. Smith recommending the appointment of Brett Peters, who I think a lot of us know, to be an at-large member to ShopC. So you'd like to come forward and just briefly, explain your interest and
Yeah, so I heard there's opening and, the last few years I've been looking to get more involved with, helping out the town and doing things and CPC, has a number of things that, I do a lot of stuff with open space and preservation, but the other, recreation, community housing and historic preservation, those are all things that, I guess I have a strong interest in and I'd love to help out in that area, being part of the CPC and, continue to be part of helping out in town.
so, one thing that it's actually down on our agenda, it's something we've been trying to work on is making better use of the affordable housing bucketed money within CPC so that we
Yep.
can actually use them and have an impact. And I had very good product discussion with Ben, who just came in, about ways that we can work together to try to clear some of the current backlog and make sure that we can actually use some of those money. So I certainly hope that you would support us in that endeavor. I think there's definitely a way we can make sure that no CPC monies are used for ineligible expenses. They're used purely for affordable housing, but I think we just, as a community, got to work better together to try to actually move forward on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's super important. So I would love to be a part of that. I'm not an expert in the, community and affordable housing area yet, but I would love to dig into that and help out and move that forward as best we can.
Kathy?
So the interest of full disclosure, I know the Peters family very well because Brett's lovely wife is my longtime office manager who is fantastic. So I am glad you're doing this. But let's get into the kind of nitty gritty for a minute as far as the buckets that CPC has to manage.
Sure.
So this board unanimously has we have a lot of goals for this year, but one that we really, really are behind is trying to do something about increasing true affordable housing in this town. Very little has been done the last few years for a variety of reasons, but we really want to start seeing projects done, not just talking about true things done. And of course, it takes money. The money comes into from the CPA, the 1% surtax, right? And then it goes into the various buckets based on what the law says. And then projects come forth. But what Mr. Denning was saying, there is a way to at least streamline the affordable housing piece of it by, instead of going through the town meeting process, putting the money directly into the Affordable House Trust Fund. So we're going to talk about this tonight. We've got that on the agenda. We've got some answers as far as, so I'm hoping Ben can actually stay if you could to hear this piece of it. So that's important to us. Affordable housing is really, it's the most underutilized bucket that we have. We've done a whole lot with the other buckets, but not with affordable housing. So I'm just saying there is a real sincere desire with this board to appoint people to the CPC that really are going to roll up their sleeves and try to find projects that will bring the ability for more people to live in this town. Okay. And I fully support your appointment. Okay.
All right, well, thank you.
All right.
I guess I concur with Kathy's comments, and obviously we've seen Brett before. We know about him, and so I agree. Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering. You may regret it at some point. Anyway, I have no questions for you. I know.
Thank you.
Thank you for volunteering and better luck next time. Keep at it. It took me 3 times and took Sam
Four.
Four. But who's counting?
You know, well,
I did.
yes, I guess I am counting. I want to echo we have money in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that has languished there for nearly a quarter of a century.
Right.
It's comes both from CPC and from developers as mitigation payments. And we need to turn that money is losing value every year. It's buying less and less affordable housing. And, you know, because we're not making inflation on it. And so it's kind of a scandal. So I'm very interested in things that involve hammers and nails and less interested in things that involve permits and studies. And so I would encourage you to join me in that area. And I'm sure you're going to do a great job.
Okay, thank you.
Someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay,
So I make a motion to appoint Mr. Brett Peters to the CPC for a term that ends, help me,
6:30,
6/30/25,
26.
26.
6. Okay. Second.
All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, you now got a quorum. All right.
Yep.
Make sure you get sworn in.
All right.
Well, there's Jim Haggerty's right there.
Yes. One-stop service. Yes.
Ms. Jazinski, so there was a vote of Shopsy last evening
Yes.
to appoint Ms. Jazinski to the CPC under the bylaw. There's a member of Shopsy who is designated for a term 3 years. So I'm certainly familiar. I don't really have any questions, but or maybe I'll take that back. I do have a question. You know, you've heard everything we said. I know that you've been pushing for this too, to try to get these CPC affordable housing monies really going and moving and into the affordable housing trust fund. So again, I hope we can make really good progress on that very soon.
I'm right there with you.
Okay.
So I actually don't support this appointment. As I said with Mr. Peters, we are really trying to get some work done, some projects done that create affordable housing. Ms. Jazinski has been part of Shopsy for quite a while, and I don't think it's been a very effective group for quite a while. We had a meeting, a joint meeting in March with Shopsy that was one of the most disappointing meetings I've been to since I've been going to meetings in this town. It was a really bad look for the entire group. I've never had people call me after a meeting like they did that one as far as what happened. It basically turned on, rather than focusing on the substance of what we were trying to do, which is create an affordable housing unit at 5 Courtable Road, it devolved into nothing more than a gripe session. So it didn't get done. That house, we might not have gotten it done, but we certainly didn't do much to make it look like we were trying to get it done. So I don't support this appointment. I want to find someone who represents Shopsy that really is ready to roll up their sleeves and get something done, not just move the money over from CPC. I think we're going to make great strides with that tonight. But I'd rather have someone that I think is going to be more effective in that role. Now, I've got a question. What was the vote last night to appoint Mr. Jazinski? Mr. Hamilton, were you there?
I was not notified of the meetings.
Well, that's unfortunate, given you're a representative, so I'm not sure what happened there. So that is inappropriate. So I'm not going to support this appointment.
Oh, by the way, so the vote was 3-0-1. There was one of, there's 4. One abstention was Mr. Jazinski.
Okay. Ready?
Yes.
I guess I agree with Kathy in the sense that as the board members have heard from me on several occasions, I thought that Ms. Braccio made a pretty interesting suggestion late in her term on the board, is that we need to rethink the way Shopsy is structured and the way Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee is restructured, to be able to put the money together with expertise on housing development, as a number of towns have done, as far as again, updating AFTC HFC, whatever, and get people who have experience in actual development of housing there, and with the money that comes through from CPC and other sources to be able to actually get projects done. And I think that it's pretty clear that the record of the town generally and SHOPSI and Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee is not outstanding in terms of actually producing affordable housing. So I think it's time for a shakeup, and I'm looking for some new faces in there. So again, I don't support this appointment.
Marguerite, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I agree with Kathy and Sam that something needs to be done differently because it's been a long time without the progress that we've been hoping for. That's the only thing. So it may call for a different skill set than is currently in the group.
The March meeting is the reason I'm sitting here, and I agree with Ms. Cook.
Would you like to say anything?
Absolutely. Mr. Hamilton was not at the meeting last night because I was not told that he was appointed and your new representative to SHOPSI, and I wasn't told that he was sworn in. So I can't invite Mr. Hamilton to a board meeting that I don't know he's on my board. So just for clarity, it may have been disappointing, but the communication lack came from the Board of Selectmen. You did not let me know. That's not my responsibility to hunt down who your representative is going to be. So that's why he wasn't there. And SHOPSI has worked very hard and very diligently to try to get affordable housing. We have done our HPP, our housing production plan. We worked on that. We got a grant to do our 5-year strategic plan, and we are working towards trying to get affordable housing in this town. We've also done a study on 21 Highland Street that took 18 months. And the gentleman who put that together and worked on it did a great job for SHOPSI. We are moving in the right direction to just try to railroad a project and just do something for the sake of doing it and spending the money. And it's not right for the town, is not the right direction we should be going. And you are very much entitled to your opinion, but I've worked very hard on SHOPSI. So if you aren't happy, I don't know what else you want me to do. I can't pull affordable housing out of a hat, but I've worked very, very long and very hard on this committee.
All right, just one thing, which is on my radar screen, which is about, do you know what the status of the one-stop application for the?
We have not heard anything yet. We are still
Okay.
waiting. There was an earlier amount of money that if we could, if we agreed that we could do something, get a consultant in by June 30th, then we were going to be able to do it. But for some reason,
Okay.
we haven't heard anything. We keep checking, but I don't know what's going on with
Okay.
it.
One of the reasons I ask is because on one of, it's basically like a, I know I have had discussions with folks on the planning board, and I think I've also mentioned this at some SHOPSI meetings about potentially working on a bylaw to make it have a category of by right accessory dwelling units. And I know that in the one-stop application that Sarah submitted, one of the things that was in that application was potentially, if we got the grant, was to use it to do a, you know, more defined study about proposed bylaws. So I've been kind of hesitating a little bit to go further into detail about that until knowing what happens with SHOPSI, because why go forward and do something, you know, like without the help of an expert, if there's going to be some, if there's a grant for an expert to look into that. So that's something that I'm very interested in, want to be kept informed of just the status of that.
As soon as we know something, happy to let you know, but we have not heard a word. We've checked in, I think 5 or 6 times, and there's just no answers yet.
Okay. All right, are there any other comments here? All right, I move that the select board appoint Dorian Jazinski as the SHOPSI representative to the Community Preservation Committee for a term to expire June 30, 2026.
Second for discussion.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, so the motion fails.
That's fine.
Right.
One less committee. Thank you.
Do you, Why don't you come and come to the microphone and just identify yourself? So
Just to answer Kathy's question, I wish I could stay for that discussion. We have a CPC meeting scheduled for this evening. We found ourselves without the ability to assemble a quorum. We had a couple of members choose not to be reappointed, and one of them, we weren't aware that was the case. So anyhow, mad scramble to get some appointments tonight. Obviously, we had hoped for two, but I think we'll have a quorum so that we can hold a meeting to meet with John Parent about a critical decision that needs to be made in the townhouse.
I understand. So can we catch up the next couple of days? Because I think you'll find this interesting,
to.
informative, right?
Yeah, no, I'm thrilled to begin an actual dialogue between selectmen and CPC.
we had a very good discussion earlier.
Very productive one.
Yeah. And we all need to work to find new at-large.
I think Ben's concern is just that there are important regulatory requirements to make sure that CPC funds don't be used for non-eligible purposes. Of course,
And I agree. There is.
the Affordable
There's a-
Housing Trust Fund is not going to use such funds for non-eligible purposes.
There's a report that's required to the
Yes,
state,
we don't
so
want
we're
to
ready.
jeopardize the state
Yeah,
match.
and I understand that that's in progress. I mentioned it to just Andrew in our conversation, because the big thing that we want to be absolutely careful is we don't want to lose our state match. If we get too far out of compliance, it could be-
Absolutely.
it could be withheld, or we could lose it for a year, and that would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. It would be
Terrible.
disastrous.
Absolutely.
So
But from our perspective, we sometimes need more flexibility to react to a situation where there's a property that comes on board. Like there's a reason why this is the only, I believe, way that a town can acquire property without going through the whole town meeting process of a 2/3 vote, et cetera, et cetera.
understood. The Affordable Housing Trust gives far more agility when it comes to, responding to an opportunity you see around the community. And
5 Cordova Road, which is the property I was talking about that we consider would have required us to act much faster than a town meeting would have allowed. So that's a perfect example of why we needed to have that money sitting there.
But we have some other interesting ideas that don't involve 5 Porterville, that also maybe get more bang for the buck. And we look forward to working together with CPC on those and Shopsy and
yeah, we recently hosted a seminar with Mass Housing Partnership. We've held them in the past with Habitat for Humanity, as well as a DHCD circuit rider, to learn about projects that have been done in the Commonwealth successfully, and to learn the strategies, the techniques they used to bring these products to fruition all across the Commonwealth. We learned 10 or 12 different examples where communities achieved a bang for the buck that's incredible, 20-1.
Yep.
Invested town funds versus the value in affordable housing it's fascinating to learn about. And I think we've got some opportunities here in town to do that. But I understand also the drive simply to get affordable housing done, because it feels like there's a lot of inertia that needs to be overcome. I think that's a valid argument. I understand it.
We're getting a little off our agenda, but you can see how excited we are about this. But Mr. Hamilton is very familiar with how Habitat works too. So we've got some expertise on this board as far as doing this.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
okay. Sheriff's report. So, update on St. Mark Street Road Park project. So I'll kind of break this into 3 parts, right? I had been very, very excited about the prospect of appearing at this meeting and announcing that we have finally acquired this parcel. We are extremely close. As you know, at our meeting on the 26th, we approved the purchase and sale agreement. That's been countersigned. And pursuant to that vote, I signed the deed out to St. Mark's, which hasn't been recorded yet because we're waiting back for the St. Mark's deed out to us, which needed to be signed by 3 different St. Mark's representatives who are out of state. And as of today, these have all been signed or in various ways of transit to us, people, FedEx, et cetera.
FedEx, to FedEx.
So I am hopeful that by tomorrow, we will have the originals of these deeds and they can get on record, which will be really a very important accomplishment, I think, that it's taken a long time. So that's what that is. The road project, as you have seen, has not started yet, but it is imminent that will begin and be finished this summer. And on the park project, I spoke with Greg Russell at VHB earlier today, and the bid package, which is based off of the plan that the working group worked on, and then the decision we made was to also add in an alternate bid for kind of more stone walls so that the whole park would be surrounded. So that was advertised in the Central Registry July 5th. Today, documents were made available to potential bidders, and responses are due by July 22nd. So it'll be very interesting to see what responses we get. We hope that they are good, and so we're potentially even looking at acting on a response to the bid package at our August meeting. So we are making progress. Anyone have any questions or further updates?
So we've got one recommendation from the working group as far as the name, correct? Okay, so we should act on that at some point.
Marguerite, you want to speak to that?
The recommendation was, after much consideration, Southborough Heritage Park. That is not a chosen name, but that's just our recommendation. We felt that it included a lot of different cultures and times and peoples. We felt it was inclusive and it also looked to the future a bit.
Okay, so that's something potentially we can work on, put on a next item on an agenda. It would be nice to stop calling it the St. Mark's Park after the
Pocket
town
Park
owns the
or
park,
whatever, yeah.
because it sent the wrong message. Next chair's report, our next scheduled meeting is August 15th. I know I have a scheduled family vacation then. Want to make sure it's okay with the board if we moved it up a week to August 8th. All right, there's a lot of nodding. With that, who is doing the members report on the mass housing filing? Is it me or?
That might be.
It's done as a members report. I don't know if, I mean, I can speak to it briefly if.
Yeah, you remember.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I mean, this is really covered by the 120 mass housing filing is, we're going to discuss it further under other matters. But at one of our June meetings, Ferris Development came, presented two 40B projects that they had engineered, and they were coming to us in advance of filing for mass housing, let us know they would be filing for mass housing, which I think all of us appreciated. And they have, in fact, they have filed for 120, and mass housing responded with a letter back to us. It was addressed to me and it's been circulated. We can talk about it. It's under 120, the substance of it later, but 250, I do not think. Certainly there's no site visit scheduled yet. There's no deadline on a response to a public comment yet. I don't know whether, I don't believe I've seen the filing with housing, with miss housing for 250. Definitely seen 120.
I think the filing just came out today.
Oh, okay.
And they are having the same date for the site visit.
Okay.
And the original date for public comment back was July 31st. I've made request of mass housing to extend that to August 18th. To give
Both of
boards and
them are
commi-
just the first.
Well, for boards and committees to have time, it was for the first one, but when they sent out the new notice, it now has the new public comment date to coincide of August 18th. So that'll give boards and committees some time to actually meet and be able to provide any feedback. And we're hoping to get any comments from boards and committees back into the select board's office on or before August 15th. So we can try and collate everything and put it together as one packet back to mass housing.
Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna hand it over to you for town administrator's report.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one of the items I just want to touch on, really appreciate the board supporting the chief's recommendation this evening to appoint Officer Urbani as the new member of our police department. So tonight you appointed him. Tomorrow is his official swearing in. That is going to be at 11:30 tomorrow morning down at Public Safety at the 9/11 Memorial. Weather permitting, we'll do that outside. It doesn't take too long. It's very nice. And Mr. Hegarty will issue the oath. So if you are available,
That's the new time, correct?
that is the new time. That had to be moved. So personnel boards at 9 and everything in that, so that allows everything to fall nicely into place. And I think as many people to attend as would be able to. The second item I have, we did receive some comments back regarding the transfer station stickers and how things are rolled out and when people actually apply, how it works. And, there were some redundancies and everything that were identified. And I, want to acknowledge Tammy Rice, who's the business administrator down at Public Works. She did a great job working with the company to make these changes. And, so that if you are renewing your stickers and your vehicle registration, vehicle information is the same as last year, you don't have to re-upload your registrations. If you're renewing your stickers last year, you applied as a senior and all your information is the same, you don't have to upload registration again. If you're renewing your stickers as a senior, you don't have to, show proof of recent tax bill or driver's license. So we've streamlined those things an awful lot. I think the form this year for at the board's request has been streamlined in terms of people who are seeking waivers. And we have had a couple of those come into the office, I believe 2 so far. Ms. Rice has also prepared an email blast that is going to be going out tomorrow, just alerting everybody about this information, and we'll blast that out on social media as well. And that, so I just wanted to acknowledge, we had the issues, we acknowledged the issues, and they were addressed, and I think everybody will be better for it. But it was Ms. Rice's initiative and everything in that to help with that. So I just wanted to acknowledge, the work that she did.
I also think Kathy,
I just
You
happened to
helped
be
out.
the first applicant. I
Yeah.
think, and that's.
he was one of the people who applied and then saw all these different issues.
Yeah, but I agree with Mark. I didn't know Tammy that well so she is a pleasure to work with and she is really on the ball. So kudos to Tammy Rice too from me.
Absolutely.
But when you got your free sticker by mistake, did you actually go back and pay for it?
I did indeed. They billed me the next day.
Good. Good,
Well, I
good
don't think
example.
any of you
Yeah.
are old enough for a free sticker or anything, so, so.
I pretended.
I wanted just to let the board know, this just came from Mr. Parent today, so I figured I'd pass it along, an update on the LED streetlight conversion. He has been conversing back and forth with Bob Moran at National Grid. And Bob said Grid has begun the installation of the new lighting fixtures in town. So if you see some lights that may look different and everything in that, things are changing. Assuming that there are no supply chain issues, we should be in good shape, hopefully sometime over the next, 8 to 10 months, we should be seeing the majority of those lights being changed over. Obviously, the winter season may slow us down a little bit, but, that is coming along nicely. And the last thing I want to do, I actually saved it for last. As you are aware, we are losing one of our fire captains. And, feel free to jump up, chief, if I step on your toes or if I do anything wrong. So, the board has received, we did receive notice, and Neil Espezi is leaving the department. Last shift is July 24th. He will be taking on the position of deputy chief in Northborough. My understanding is that there is an emergency management component to the position. So that's right in Neil's wheelhouse. Neil, joined as a permanent firefighter in 2000, right? So he's had 23 years with the Department of Permanent Experience, had 9 years before that in call and auxiliary. He's done a lot for this community and helping us to move forward in terms of emergency management. If you've ever been involved in with us setting up an emergency center during a storm or anything, or if you've even been involved in, getting correspondence from a potential storm that may come, Neil, that was his that was his jam. He really enjoyed, handling those things. He spent several stints going down and serving down in the Caribbean, helping with disaster recovery, and being part of units to do that, and represented this town well. Really, just want to say thank you for everything he's done for this community. I'm sure he's going to do great things in Northborough, and he's close enough that we can look over the fence and keep an eye on him. So, anything you want to add, Chief?
Good evening. The town administrator highlighted a lot of Neil's career. He will be missed. He was also instrumental as our prevention and officer for a number of years. So a lot of our safety codes, a lot of inspections that were done, he was instrumental. We did have a correction. His last day of employment is going to be the 24th, but his last scheduled shift is next Tuesday. So if you want to stop in, you're more than welcome to. He deserves this. He's well respected in the area and he'll do very well. So we're very proud, and it's going to be hard to fill the hole, but that's our next process. So thank you.
Can I make a comment, Andrew?
Absolutely.
One thing that's near and dear to me, I don't think anybody in town has done more to find grant money than Neil has over the years. He, in my view, is the champ.
That is something they will award
finding-
someone to stand.
So that part particularly, I will sorely miss, but hopefully, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And many other things too.
He did a great job. He and the town accountant made a nice pair in trying to make sure that we got as much reimbursement back in terms of, FEMA and CARES
Yep.
and everything. So
Yep.
I was instrumental in that as well.
Sort of a not so obvious contribution, but something that made a big difference for the town. So you're right, he will be sorely missed. Thank you.
And I'll just echo what you said. I just briefly got to know a little bit during the strategic planning committee that you put together that I was part of when I first joined the select board. And I think Neil's a great guy and got to know him from some of the events, you've had in the public safety building. Particularly really enjoyed meeting him a little bit more during some of the Lisa Braccio organized a great event when COVID we felt like, oh, it's completely over now. And there was a great event that recognized all the people who had helped out at the vaccine clinics during COVID, and Neil was there, made some really great remarks. So I am going to make a point to try to make it down to just wish him the best. And I agree with you. I think he's going to be a great asset to Northborough, and wish him well. With that, you have anything else, Mark?
Also, thank you.
Okay. So on the consent agenda, I've got some edits to the meeting. I have some edits to the minutes of the meeting. Anyone else have any holds on the consent agenda?
And G for me.
Table
G.
Table G.
I didn't get G, I don't
I'll
think.
send out.
Okay,
Yep,
all right.
so your table G.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, it sounded like there were a lot of holds. Can you go?
and E.
D and E,
So it's A, D.
A, D and E. Okay,
You held A.
I did. Okay, I move that we approve consent agenda items B, C, and F.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. On the minutes. Who, Marguerite or Al, do you have any edits?
I have a few,
Okay,
not major. On the sixth of June, line 52. Is that John Palmer or Joseph Palmer?
I think it's John.
Joe.
Joe.
Is Joe?
Joe.
Okay, so that's Joseph, and then the other one.
sure.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say, this is Joe Palmer, who's on Capitol. It's
Yeah.
Joe.
I don't.
No,
think it was.
he lives on, okay,
Joe lives on Perkyville.
he does?
It's actually a couple, I know, I went to the nosy book.
Joe Plummer lives in Parker Village.
Yeah, but I wouldn't, I didn't think it was him, but maybe.
It was John. Okay. All right. Then the other one is line 105. Let's see.
Down should be town.
Town, yeah.
Yep. And then 164, there's the word from, but the F is left off. And then 176, I think it should be boards and committees in the plural.
Yep.
And I think on 224, the word learn has been left out. I think it was just,
Where am I going?
she's on 224, she stated it is important to the results of testing and does not want to assume any liability for this. No, that's not.
Or no, learn or no.
Yeah, yeah. That was the only ones I have on that one.
I've got a few on 6.6. Should we do 'em on each meeting?
That's good six.
Yeah, I've got a few for 6.6. Yeah. Should I do those now, Andrew?
Go right ahead. I've got one too, but
Line 38, a but with one T. Line 94, participating in. Line 103 should be flag school. Line 105 is town and flag school. I think we had town there. And that's it for me for,
okay. That covered the things. Kathy, do you have some?
No, I got mine.
All right, I have one, which is lines 195 and 196 of the June 6th minute meeting, referring to Mr. Miller's comment where it said expressed his frustration at the misrepresentation that he did not want to participate. I would say that is at what he described as the misrepresentation, that he did not wish to participate. Okay, with that, I move that we approve the June 6th, 2023 minutes as amended.
second.
All those in favor? The 12th, this is really more of a planning board meeting than a select board meeting.
Yep.
I did see one edit.
I have two.
Okay. Why don't you go first?
One question, should we not note at the front of it that also attending Jay Tallerman Town Council, because he is referred to in there, and to me, he's an important participant, so I would add him to that. And the
Good
same thing for 626, actually. And then line 36, missing words should be 0.5 mile radius.
Al, Marguerite, do you have any? Okay, this one is against our self-interest, but let's make it accurate.
No, stop.
51 says, Ms. Luttrell stated she would like to discuss how the planning board could avoid undue influence on projects that are solely under the jurisdiction of the planning board. It should be the select board, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that was the intent of it, right?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What?
Really?
No, I think she means what you said.
How the planning board could avoid undue influence? Oh, okay, all right. Okay,
She means exactly.
all right, okay.
We're interested in us, not. their care.
Okay.
Okay.
I move that we approve the June 12, 2023 minutes as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
I'm just abstaining because I didn't go to the 401.
June 20 minutes.
A couple.
Okay.
One Stantec, line 15 misspelled, Stantec. And line 271, it's Cindy Foster, Cindy. That's it for me.
Okay, and for me, I think on line 60. Is that how you spell Rob's last name? I think it's with an O instead of S-E-N. You agree? Right?
That looks weird to me, so I think you're right, but I may be wrong.
So I think we should correct that name. And on lines 258 to 260, this is describing the motion that was made for the flag policy. I didn't go back and compare this to the exact policy that we posted, but I know that when I put that together, I listened to the audio of that repeatedly just to make sure that it's exactly correct. So we should make sure that it's correct. Okay, perfect. I move that we approve the June 20, 2023 minutes as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? And we're ready to consider the June 26th minutes?
Yep.
Any edits to those?
I had two.
Okay,
One, the same comment about Mr. Tallerman at the top, I would say, also attending Jay Tallerman Town Council. And this doesn't have line numbers, but in section 4, near the end, Ms. Cook's comment was reversed, and that she had said that ask for a revote because she would not like title insurance. I think that's what you said. Right?
or was it that, I don't remember, but or could it have been that at the bottom? Did I move that we just get title insurance without talking about the,
No, there, you moved that we get it subject to a $500.
okay,
And then Mr. Hamilton, I think, voted against that.
that's
Uh,
correct.
And then Ms. Cook asked for a revote
That's right.
because you changed your position originally and
Right.
you wanted to vote against. So the final vote was 3-2.
That's right.
So it should just say Miss Cook asked for a revote as she would not
Not
like.
Yeah,
Okay. I move that we approve the June 26, 2020 minutes as amended.
second.
All those in favor? So we are now completely caught up, right?
Except for, and we can't forget this,
Oh,
once July 24th comes and goes, we've got 4 sets of executive
August
minutes.
minutes.
Okay, so,
we'll release.
okay. Other than that, yeah, we are.
All through.
This is life with 5 proofreaders is difficult.
I know.
Not like the old days.
So Marguerite, I think Marguerite is going to quickly compete with Sam.
No,
Well,
Marguerite's
And,
Marguerite's way out of my,
and her friend Judy Betts too, so.
Yeah,
way out of my class.
Yeah.
We'll just have to. That's, you're a man. of
okay,
action.
who held approval of interdepartmental transfers?
I did. Because I think this is a good news story too, and I just wanted to
Okay.
not pass over it and not parenthesis. So did everyone look at what? So first of all, let's make this clear. There are no reserve fund transfers at all for fiscal year 23, 0. Okay, so that whole $180,000 will go back into free cash when that gets closed out. And for a $55 million budget, look how paltry these are, and most of those are select board ones, as a matter of fact. So look at this. I mean, there's nothing here at all. So I just think this is totally kudos to the county department, kudos to the process that we have embarked on as far as the review goes. So I just think this is worth champion.
Yep.
So that's why I held it. That's the only reason.
And I'd expand on that, but I think this actually has roots back in prior board. Recognize Ms. Malinowski for her efforts to look in more detail at that financial tracking process and the reporting and overview process that she started, I think is a strong reason why we're in this position. So great that that is in place, and hopefully that will continue going forward, because I agree this is a remarkable outcome for this kind of budget.
I agree with that. So Al Marguerite, when we have our financial audit, we had a new auditor last year and he came forth and he basically took a look at it and said, you guys were amazing. When they did the testing, there was not one exception to they don't look at everything, right? They test. And so they test on, the sampling and not one exception did they occur. So they just gave us rave reviews as far as the the finance department, what they saw, et cetera. So we really do have a very solid financial department in this town. So they all deserve, and Ms. Malinowski, kudos.
The auditor seemed somewhat disappointed, actually. He said that that was the only audit he could remember without an exception.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
I've been on it. It's no fun.
Oh, yeah, me too. And I get exceptions.
Okay, so that was it for that one.
You want to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to basically approve the interdepartmental transfers for fiscal year 23 as listed on our sheet.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, why do you hold rescinding the public comment policy?
Because do we want to do that before we decide what we're going to do with the new? Do we want to rescind if we don't have a new one? We're fine to rescind.
So
See, I thought we'd already rescinded. Mark corrected me. So I'm fine doing it, but I just want to make sure that we may not be approving a
we
new
don't,
one.
That's right. First off, we don't necessarily even need a public comment policy,
Agreed.
but between the SJC decision in the Barron case, and now we have not enforced the old public comment policy because it is been deemed unconstitutional. And it's just, I've been advised that we should take the official act of rescinding the unconstitutional policy.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure we
Shouldn't be
discuss
that
it, knowing that we may not be adopting a new one.
I agree, and also that, I know Mr. Lip raised the point about the timing of when we consider this. Don't necessarily agree with the point he's making, but I'm certainly happy if there was a little bit of more time to consider it. And I think one of the points you're making is like, so for the benefit of Al and Marguerite, this is something that we started to do in the tail end of the last board because the SJC decision came out. I just don't remember the sequence. It came up at least 2 meetings, but apparently we didn't actually take the vote to rescind it. And I remember we came really close to finalizing a new policy, but we should discuss it again since we got 2 new members.
But is it a problem if we rescind and then don't vote for a new one for another meeting or 2?
I don't think so, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that's what we may be doing. So you know what's good. So you may not have a policy replace it depending on what we do with it down here, and Andrew will explain what.
I mean,
let's talk
the reality is we don't have a policy right now because
That's
the
correct.
policy we had was unconstitutional. So I agree. We should rescind the old policy since it's a moot question.
It leaves us with some exposure potentially, but
It's no different. I mean, we don't have one today because so, and I think we're gonna have a lively discussion about the new policy, but
Okay,
So I'll make a motion to rescind the current posted select board public comment policy.
second.
okay, so who for the minutes was the second? Is like 3 people second at the same time.
I defer.
Okay, all right.
So Marguerite seconded it? Because Bridget has
She's
to
the-
know this.
she
That's
didn't,
why I'm
yeah.
trying to repeat this for Bridget's sake.
Okay, we'll just say for the minutes that
Congratulations.
Sam seconded. Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay.
4-1.
So our public comment policy is rescinded. I think that is taking care of the consent agenda, right?
It does.
Okay, turning next to other matters. So we started to talk a little bit about the 120 Turnpike Road 40B application. The current status that they're in is they have an application to Mass Housing for a site eligibility letter, which has this kind of just very basic determination that the applicant owns and controls the site. That there's nothing completely egregious that prevents a project from being built on this site. And so we have an opportunity for public comment by August 18th, and that's because Mr. Purple reached out to Mass Housing, got a little bit of extra time from July 31st. So we've put this out to other boards and committees so they have time to come back. You know, my general view of this is, and also having been part of as three of us were in the process of the public comment letter on the Park Central application for site eligibility. You know, there's a lot of features of this that are really attractive in the grand scheme of things, that this is a site where the only ingress and egress is through Route 9. It's already part of an existing office park. We had the meeting where there was no butter opposition. There's really just the geographically, it's unlikely to have any butter opposition. And we have a need to get to our 10% under the 40B law. And we've got a housing production plan, which calls for us to generate 66 units by, I believe, 2025 to meet certain targets. So my own view is I think this is something that we should express some support to. But I'll open it up for discussion. Mr. Stivers?
Yeah, I guess I was impressed by the presentation, and I think this sounds like a very attractive project for the reasons that you suggest. And it seems to me that we've talked about the possibility of what's friendly 40Bs in concept. And this seems to me to potentially be something that could be interesting with that, to have something that, again, gets something for the town in terms of safe harbor, at least close to safe harbor, if not over it. And there's some discussion around possibility of increasing the size a little bit, I think, to do that. And again, with a developer who I think has a good reputation and seems interested in working with the town. So I think all the ingredients are there for a very successful project if we can work together on this. So I strongly support this.
Marguerite?
Yes, the same as Sam has expressed. I'm guessing that sometimes mass housing gets comments back from towns that are more negative than what we would be doing.
Frequently.
I'm
yes.
just guessing that.
Yes.
So I'm thinking it would be very, very nice to write a letter of strong support.
Al?
I agree. I would like to arrange a site visit, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be available the time. So perhaps there's a time we can do that at a separate meeting. One question I have is, so our date for posting the letter effectively is August 18th.
Yes.
And so we have one.
Getting it to.
Oh, yeah, yes. We have one meeting between now and then,
Yes, which we've just moved up a little bit.
which we just moved up a little bit. It does strike me that we should have some form of a public hearing on this at the August 8th meeting, just, we're crossing Ts and dotting Is. If people want to make their opinions known, we ought to make an opportunity
Yep.
for them.
And what we did with, we did this only about 6 or 8 months ago, or a year ago with Park Central, is there were a couple meetings, we picked someone to put together a draft that was then circulated in advance of the meeting. And then we had kind of a markup session at a public meeting.
But I think, Al, the point you're making is that we ought to get focused public input as part of that
Yeah,
process.
yes, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah. A hearing that's advertised as public, I hate to use the word forum, but at least active input from the public. And I agree with you that we are unlikely to get a whole lot of a butter participation in this. I've actually had a call from one Woodland Road resident asking what's going on with it, but my sense is there's not a lot of opposition lurking out there at this point, but I think it's incumbent on us to make every opportunity for people to participate.
And I think so, like the geography of this.
Yep.
So you drive through that parking lot, and then where it's really closest to, right, is like the far back part of it,
uphill there.
up a
Yeah.
hill, and
Yep.
then there's another office building, which is like deep into the site. It's harder to see from Route 9.
Yep.
Good statement.
Okay.
Good location.
One thing I think might come up is impact on the schools, the school population. That's something.
This one's pretty small though, compared to others. So let's talk about the calendar again. So if we meet on the eighth, and that's our public forum as far as last time we're gonna, get comments.
Yes.
What date have we given the boards committees to respond to by? Of August? Okay, so we should, end up with a plan too, as far as getting a letter drafted.
Well, then how does that, so it would be ideal to get comments back from the other boards before we.
When's the site visit?
Because we're meeting a little bit earlier, right? Okay,
July 25th is the site visit. So you want to give the boards and committees time to do that, right? And then, so I would accelerate the boards and committees response maybe by a week or so. So that on the eighth, we really have everything we need to write that letter.
yeah, we're in the timing is a little bit challenging with summer, but what do you think, Mark?
I think that, I think we can make that work. So, but again, if the board wants to, provide all of their thoughts and then assign a scribe on behalf of the board to work with staff to get that put together. Mr. Hamilton either is volunteering or has a comment.
No, I'm volunteering.
Okay.
So Al, I did the last ones. I'm happy to give you that one, although this is going to be much different, I'm pretty sure.
Thank you.
So that night, then we need to do the markup so that it's really great, because we're not meeting after
Well,
that.
this is gonna be what I think, very different than for Park Central, there was like a stack of
Yes,
comments like this thick.
yes.
I don't think we're gonna get that.
I don't either. Planning board sent their own letter in, if I remember, separate from ours. I think we may have included this, but they also sent it in
I
separately.
think the boards and a lot of the boards and committees, conservation as well on that. I think there were separate letters and everything. So yours will state your position, but it may incorporate some of the other comments that are also being provided.
So if we have to have a special meeting to approve, which we did last time,
Yeah.
too, by the way, that's how we did it. But I would say that if I end up knowing nothing new from what I know tonight, I'm with you, Andrew. I am so for this project. I think it's small, it's in a great location, and it may on its own get us over the 10%. It just depends on a couple things, right? But it might. But it's going to get us close, even if it doesn't get us over. So I see no reason not to full-throatedly support this project.
So my suggestion is that if staff works with Mr. Hamilton on a draft letter for the board to have for consideration on the eighth, you're going to have people come in and have comments and everything in that. If there's anything as a result of that you'd like to change, I mean, I really think that you can do that. You can make those changes at the meeting and we can have that all set and avoid a special meeting if that's possible.
And also just to Marguerite's comment about schools, I remember I had an attorney friend who worked at Mass Housing. I remember it was Mass Housing or the DHCD. I mean, his perspective was from the state's perspective, that's one of the least convincing arguments
Right.
they have on why to do it, is because they see it as just kind of a typical suburban argument to try to stop affordable housing. But the bedroom mix that this
Right.
project has is one that, and again, there's a precedent of, you can look, I haven't looked at, someone else has, is how many students did Madison Place?
17
Okay.
Not as
So
many.
this
out of
would be
168, so about
so this-
10%.
So this would be smaller, and also there's a good number of just one bedrooms in this, and I just don't think that it's unlikely someone that is renting a one bedroom is gonna have a school age.
I think even a lot of the two bedrooms are
bedroom.
going to be.
Yeah, yeah.
they're-
And let me say this, Madison Place is full. So it's not like there's not a demand for these type of units in this town. Even forget the affordable piece of it. There's a demand for rental units in this town.
Yep.
There's a lot of older people that have sold their houses, big houses, and moved into Madison Place.
Yep.
There was a lot of discussion for the Madison Place project around bedroom mix and discussion. And again, the data that I saw suggests your point, Al, that 3 bedrooms does create more potential for school children. 2 falls off dramatically and 1 not much. So
Yeah,
I think it's an issue that we want to think about, but to me, this is not the deal breaker at this level, certainly.
No, I
think
agree.
the studies also show when there's rentals, there's less children. When you're talking about a Park Central that is going to be for sale, you got a probability of more children when it's a more permanent place.
But I think the point, it's also relevant because, we're also thinking about the Neary building project, and one of the things that's frustrating is that, for purposes of state funding for how big that, school can be, we can't count anticipated or projected enrollment from a project which hasn't yet been permitted, but is in process.
Right.
So that's why I think we have a desire to try to maybe manage the growth which is coming.
What were the price points for the rentals?
It's actually,
It's in the
you can-
packet.
it's in the, it's,
That's what I thought. It was
yeah.
low. compared-
Well, it broke it out between affordable and market rate, but so only 25% of the units will be affordable. 75% will be market rate, but under the DHCD, the 40B regulations, all the apartments count towards the subsidized housing inventory.
And affordable is affordable in quotes here, actually.
It is indeed, and we know that, so we still are going to try to do projects that really are.
Yeah.
Really affordable.
Okay, so I don't think, well, I guess one thing we could talk about is who attends site visit, because we can't have three of us. And I don't remember.
Yes,
how
we
did it.
can.
Yes,
Yes, we
we can.
can.
We
Yeah,
can?
you just have to be, you,
Okay, just
Can't
don't-
deliberate.
Muzzle.
Okay, all right.
But we did it for.
I don't remember how we did it. I went to the Park Central.
I was there.
site visit. Who else was?
I was there,
I was there.
Okay, all right.
but
Yeah.
That was,
I didn't see either of you there.
Yep.
I
Lisa
there.
was there too. Yeah,
Yeah, so we can't talk, but you can ask questions,
yeah.
and we checked on that.
That was unusual because it was standing in a parking lot in
And
a
you couldn't see
very
anything.
hot August day.
And you couldn't see
The
anything.
sun just blaring on us and blacktop everywhere, and having this whole presentation with the, plans and everything. So hopefully there's cooler weather
Yeah.
this month. Or bring a tent.
July 25th, I'm
Right.
sure it will be.
So I noticed planning board responded back to Ms. Miller at Mass Housing and said that they would be, they would have representatives in attendance at the site visit. So I will do the same, that the select board will have representatives there as well.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so I don't think we need to take any votes. But so Mr. Hamilton's gonna be our author of the draft letter. Okay. Okay, the next item is the regional dispatch memorandum from fire and police. If you want to come forward and just, it's a very short memo. But if you want to add any other color on it, because as you know, we in our goal setting meeting, obviously, we want to try to make some progress. I want to get your perspective on like, there's two issues. One is just the immediate need. And then there's kind of a longer term goal of regionalization.
So the Chief Achilles and I had sent this memo. We really wanted to discuss, what originally prompted this idea was the fact that we needed some help with the ECC. It needed to be addressed, safety, security concerns. Options were brought forward. One was fortifying what we had in place. The other was regionalization. We did the regionalization. Again, I wasn't a part of the initial talks, and Chief Achilles kind of took the lead on a lot of the stuff that had to do with regionalization. We went forward with that with the goal of improving, what we have in place, trying to find something that's going to be cost effective, safety purposes, and working with partners around in our region for in this local region that would be a part of the regionalization. So unfortunately, it didn't seem to pan out. It didn't go through the town meeting. There was, didn't seem like there was a good following for this position. And so Chief Achilles and I met after the fact, and we said that this is a problem that still needs to be addressed. And we still need to move forward with this. So we started to look into fortifying, what it would entail to fortify what we have in place with our current dispatchers. And we started reaching out to area departments, finding out what they have in place, what seems to work. And right now, we are in the process of looking into that process. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. But we want to find something that's going to be a cost effective to compare the two, a regionalization or fortifying what we have in place. And, you know, like we said in the memo, it is our intention to make a presentation about recommendations for the select board and seek community support at the next scheduled town meeting. You want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's an important distinction that we were tasked afterwards that although there may be new support for regionalization, we haven't really had the opportunity to completely vet out what we need to do to strengthen our own dispatch. And I think also the memo looks at a lot of work was done with regionalization with some key partners in our area. About 21 months worth of work. So if we can't get support, whether it's financially or conceptually on strengthening our own dispatch, then our recommendation is kind of revisit that study, that report, and the opportunities that exist instead of starting from scratch and looking at different regionalization options. So we have a lot of work to do. We've been meeting on a regular basis, trying to get some concrete facts, how to strengthen our dispatch. And I think whether it's in October or in March of next year, we could probably provide that to you.
Okay, I have some thoughts, but who wants to go first? After you wanna.
I'll go first. So thank you guys for being here. It's always a pleasure to see both of you. So I read your memo 3 times just to make sure I got everything. And I just want to make clear now, you got 2 new members, right? But the previous 5 members that really took a look at it, actually unanimously supported the concept of regionalization. What we never did is compare what you're proposing to do, which is what I think needs to be done, is do a real deep dive into both strengthening locally, which obviously the local dispatchers want, versus some form of regionalization with all forms being on the table. We really looked at one permutation, and I'm looking at you, Chief, because, we will have our Foxborough discussion, but we were pretty much there as far as convinced that the regionalization probably was the more effective choice and probably should save money. But that's the right comparison, is what you would do locally to regional, not what you have now, because this has to change, right? And I think we're all convinced that something needs to give here. It says what that is and what it should look like, right? So we're still with you. I know you probably just, what happened at town meeting, first of all, that was an advisory vote, but it was late at night. And, people bring people in just for certain votes. I thought what got said was absolutely wrong and inappropriate, just so you know. It's a terrible way to end what was a pretty good meeting up to that point. But it is what it is, right? So we go forward. But yeah, we are all ears as far as what you would propose as far as what to do locally. Then I think it's our job to work with you on the regional choices. So we're going to talk about goals in a minute, and I think that's going to get assigned to probably maybe 2 people as far as doing that. So this to me is just a continuation of where we left off. So we're with you. We're going to get this done and get it done right. Okay.
First off, if I were sitting in your shoes, I'd probably be pretty frustrated too. And I want to thank you for coming here and putting this 4 square on the table, so first of all, I agree with you. We need to have, we need to dig in and figure out if we're going to do this alone, what's it going to cost us? And what's the performance standard that we would expect? And I agree with Ms. Cook. We have to look at all of the available options to understand, can we get an appropriate performance standard? And what is that performance standard going to cost us? And what is the business model? And I think in my still fairly ignorant view. There seem to be two different potential models. One is where which was similar to the program that you guys had worked on, where, you know, we're essentially we're governing partners. And one is where we're buying dispatch on a fee for service basis. And those are two different things. So we need to understand what all of the available options are, and then compare them with going it alone. This is a big decision because in the last, I think, 10 years, we've seen about a 10% increase in our municipal headcount. This would be the single largest headcount increase that this town has had in the 20 some odd, sneaking up on 30 years I've been here. So this is a big decision. And I think we need to assess all of the available options. I agree with Ms. Cook. You know, we're here to work with you to sort through what are those options and put them all on the table and figure out, you know, what the right decision for our community is.
I understand it's not clear what the best way forward is right now, but I think I'd like to focus also on educating the voters in town a lot before they vote on it again. Because I think it would have helped a lot to have more data beforehand. So I wouldn't mind helping out with that in any way that I can.
We agree with that. I mean, that's definitely a reason why we're doing this as well.
Sam, you wanna?
Sure. Thank you. Good to see you as always. I guess I'm still at the same place I've been conceptually, in that long-term, the right quotes regionalization is the way I think you have to go, just because of economics. And there are models out there that do work, and it is challenging because there are a lot of models that don't work. So how do you sort through all of that stuff? But one of the things that's interesting to me is that even if we decide today that we wanted to go regional, there will still be an interim period that I think we have to do a better job of staffing that function than we've done. And to me, that's an interesting thing to look at. And I appreciate the fact that you're looking around to see how others are dealing with this. So I've watched a number of other town committee meetings talking about this topic. I've talked to a number of dispatchers about those kinds of issues. And I think there may be some interesting interim middle ground solutions there, in terms of the fact that demand is not steady 24 hours a day. So how can you actually staff correctly at different times of day, different days of the week, et cetera, to have, you know, full-time and reserve capacity, et cetera, in ways that don't require us to just simply double the staff directly, which is sort of the brute force way. But even if you double the staff, you still have events that overload a double staff. And so the real issue for me is, how do you figure out the fallback structure there to cover appropriate significant events without having to full staff up there? So I think there are ways that we can deal with that going forward for the interim, and it may turn out that that's actually comes out of that a great model that we can afford, that would not mean the kind of impact that Al mentioned here, which would be a pretty substantial challenge to get support for. So I certainly appreciate what you're doing. I encourage you to keep investigating. And again, for me, if somehow out of the blue, a really attractive regionalization option popped up, that's the kind of thing that to me is a long-term solution, maybe long-term enough after I'm long gone from the board here. But ultimately, I think you've got to, the economics force you to move in that direction, but that's not going to happen soon. So let's do the best we can. And I think there's some good solutions in there, and I appreciate your looking into that and look forward to hearing what you find. Thank you.
So just what I would add is, I'm also interested in, thinking about, you know, in addition to the, what is the, staffing cost of strengthening dispatch, you know, also thinking about, capital. Because, I know one of the things that drove the regionalization study that happened over a long time before was thinking about, you know, we have a space in the public safety building that has all of that. You know, if you've ever gone in there, you go to the right and there's just all this computer stuff servers and high-tech equipment that, you know, in that industry gets obsolete pretty quickly. So that's one thing that'll be, you know, interesting in how that factors into this. And a couple of meetings ago, we had a consultant who helps to identify grants for things on a long-term capital project. You know, one of the things she really noted right away is for emergency communications equipment, you get a huge advantage if you're regionalizing, and you're at a disadvantage if you're investing in your own place. I think a lot about like Metro West rec after, and it still has Westboro and Grafton. They applied for the grant. I'm just interested in kind of what happens next from there. Do they actually go forward? Do they get the grant? Do they actually stand up the building? I think maybe even the tenor of the conversation might change a little bit if they actually build that building. There's people working there. You see that it's as not as scary as people made it out to be before. We're probably a long way from here to there, right? But just one thing to monitor for information is what's going on with Metro West, because we were on the altar with them and then we jumped off. So you naturally wonder about the.
Were we on the altar
partner that you
or
left
at the
on
altar?
You know, what happens to them? And you know, we can say we need information. There was a lot of information put together as part of this other effort, but it's still a lot of projections because it's hard, you know, the number of participants in any rec is always changing, and no matter what, I think we're going to have to make a decision that's based on somewhat imperfect data, you know, that the cost of making it's easier to find out the cost of making the investment here. It's harder to project the savings that you get from regionalizing. You just have to make the decision knowing that that's going to be, you know, somewhat imperfect. But one thing that I was just reading online last night that made me think of just the importance of this is this story of what happened in the city of Philadelphia, where there was this really amazing incident. The city of Philadelphia is no comparison in terms of public safety challenges but there was an amazing, horrible situation that happened because of a dispatch error where there was an incident at, you know, North 42nd Street, but they sent them to South 42nd Street, and it caused this whole series of events. It was awful. So I know that, you know, fortunately, we've never had an incident like that, but it really does underscore, you know, the importance of dispatch. And I know that that's one of the things you're focused on too, is. Right.
Andrew,
Yes.
could I expand on your technology point a second?
Yes.
'Cause I think that is an interesting thing. And I guess I look at technology as a separate issue from the personnel piece. And my view is that technology in one way is the potential for sort of ultimate regionalization in the sense that you go to the cloud for that kind of stuff. And I've heard concerns that creates risk exposure, et cetera, but there are public safety organizations who actually do use the cloud. And my day job, I'm in the healthcare business with a lot of sensitive data and the need for, you know, rapid response to calls about service and so forth. And I use Amazon Web Services, and I could never afford to pay for the equipment and the structures and the processes that they have. As new technology comes out, they get it and they provide all the security beyond what, again, I could afford, what the town could afford, certainly in those kind of situations. So I think there's an interesting possibility to say, let's think about maybe regionalizing or going to the cloud for the technology piece that could save us, I think, a fair amount of money potentially, but we'd have to look at those numbers and maybe have more people and not go regional with people as fast, but do it with technology. So it would be interesting, I think, to look at those two issues as separate ones, and maybe there are deal killer elements of the technology going to the cloud that I'm not aware of. But again, I know that there are groups that do it, and if they can do it theoretically, then maybe it's worth looking at. So that might make it more economically feasible for us to keep the people in Southborough potentially. So interesting possibility.
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
So, you know, one of the things, and I'll look at you, Chief, because you were more involved in the study and the whole thing.
Look
all
at
the way
him.
through. Okay, no, I'm looking at you. But remember too, in this, you know, nobody can help this. You know, you started out with 7, then went to 6 and 5 and 4, and then, you know, Hopkinton dropped out, right? On a 3-2 vote. So then we're down, you know, then there was 3, and that was the minimum you had. And that really did change the cost quite a bit as far as what would have been the cost if you'd had 7 in there. You really would have had a lot of more of a base to spread the cost over if you had 7. So that was too bad. So that didn't help anything. But we got to remember too, one of the things, now, we don't have to take, this is not a town meeting vote to do this. It's the select board's decision to do it. We should definitely involve the town. We should have, you know, hearings, et cetera, which we did last time. We had a lot of, you know, public comment, but we definitely should keep that in mind as far as trying to appropriately convince, once we're convince the town that this is really the better way to go. You know, if we had started off being regionalization like California, that's got what, 40, and you know, we've got our, you know, the little tiny states got all we've got, you know, we wouldn't be having this problem because people have been used to it to begin with. We just got people that are so used to this local version, it's hard to change. So we've got all this pushback from our dispatchers. So we got to work with them too, to try to convince them. But we do have to make sure we answer the DART question, which we really didn't. We kept saying, oh, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. But that came up over and over, you know, that dark station, you know, you want somebody to be able to talk to the minute you walk in, no matter what time of day. So we got to keep that one in mind too, when we get back to this, and we are going to get back to it.
Anything else you want to add, or?
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thanks.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Another thing that was a later addition to the agenda is capital, I still call it the capital planning committee. Capital improvement and planning committee. Recommendation on the beta group, and then I'm thinking who should be the person to discuss this? Would it be you or Sam or?
I'd be happy to defer this to Mr. Stivers if he was so willing. He's been, well, like I said, this is an offshoot, just to tee it up. This is an offshoot of the discussions and the pavement management program that the town has received through Beta Group. And this was another opportunity that was presented to us in further discussions with Beta Group. And I'll let Mr. Stivers speak to the particulars.
Okay, thank you. We did hire Beta Group to do a survey of the road condition.
I think it might be useful just for Marguerite now, if you step back and just like pavement management system, what
Okay.
is it, and all that stuff.
Okay, I have my 43 PowerPoint slides here, so let's go.
We were doing well on time.
Sorry. Well, we are doing well, so that's.
Don't open the door, don't open the door. The issue is that we did a big paving project, and that's been in the works for a few years. Prior to the DPW superintendent tended to save her state money and town money for paving because it's more economical to bid larger projects versus a small project at a time, so kind of thing. So that was coming, and the question is, how do people actually manage that elsewhere? And it turns out that there are a number of towns who use a more analytical approach. And so basically they put a scanner on the front of a car and drive it around town. And they can either use photographic scanners or what we did was LiDAR, which was a light-based scanner, to basically photograph the pavement condition for all the roads in town. We got about 70 road miles in town. And so they did that scan, and they've got software that takes that information and then evaluates those road segments. And depending on where you're going, road segments between like 10 feet long to several hundred feet long. You again, bucket those in similar category kind of things. So if in fact you find out what condition the roads are in, then it turns out there are probably 9 or 10 different road treatments that you can do, all the way from removing the entire road base and surface and rebuilding the road, which is very expensive. That lasts typically 20 years or more, or a very light seal coating, which is inexpensive relatively, and it again extends the life by a year or 2 or 3, something like that. So the economics for those processes are very well known to the engineers. There are a lot of people spent a lot of money doing that many times over the course of the last 100 years or however long they've been paving roads. And so the issue is that how do you figure out how to effectively use your road budget? If you've got $1 million, what do you do? And in terms of the best economic solution. And it turns out that the traditional way of doing that, the engineers describe as worst first. And so if you got a road that's in terrible condition, then you go in and rebuild it. And you look for the next one that's in terrible condition. And so you wind up spending a lot of money on a small number of roads. And it happens that you can actually model that analytically in an optimization model. And what you want to do is you want to rate your roads on a 0 to 100 scale in terms of condition. And there's a very specific technical rating system they use for this. And the mathematical equation that you use is you want to say, how can I improve my overall average road quality index for all roads in town by the most amount if I've got to spend $1 million or $2 million or whatever? And that answer typically is you do a few of the worst roads, but you do a lot more, relatively speaking, on maintenance in a variety of ways. And one maintenance that's cheap is there's a treatment coating that you can apply, you spray it on. It restores a lot of the oil in the original asphalt. And you do that 3 or 4 or 5 years after you repave a road. That has a significantly positive effect that is inexpensive, and you get more mileage, more bang for the buck out of that kind of process and waiting for the road to deteriorate. And so it's a pretty complicated math problem, but it's certainly solvable. And so what we've done is we contracted with a beta group to go around and do the assessment, which they did. There's an interesting report out there. If you're interested in it, be glad to forward that to you. And we
got a grant for this, right?
Yeah, that was, I think it was ARPA.
Community compact grant?
Compact grant, yeah, compact grant. So, and as they did that, we also have an actually photographic record of, in addition to the LiDAR, a photographic record of driving around town. So the DPW can now access that data file and basically drive around town and look at the roads and sidewalks or whatever as that car drove around town, which is great. Google Maps does it, but the Google images sometimes are several years old. So we now got a very current version of that. And so one of the questions that the things they proposed originally was, are you folks interested in doing sidewalks? And at the time, we didn't have the funds to do that. But as we looked at it more and we thought about things that the now Southborough Public Access Committee, the former ADA committee, is doing, they've been very concerned about sidewalks and curb cuts for street crossings and so forth. And so the beta folks said, look, we've got the basic data now. It would be relatively inexpensive to actually add the sidewalk analysis here to be able to figure out, are there places that we ought to think about investing more money in sidewalks and in terms of access to sidewalks for pedestrians. And the sidewalk money out of ARPA, which we've got about $700,000 now, plus for new sidewalks, and put like $50,000 or something for 100 for sidewalk repair. And so it seemed to make a lot of sense to have a better tool for determining what we want to do with that money for repair, particularly, if not construction of new sidewalks. So Beta actually has a group that lives and breathes sidewalks in this world of specialization. So you want to find somebody who actually has a lot of experience with it and who really cares about sidewalks, because the road guys care less about sidewalks typically. And so it seemed like a good way to think about how we spend that money, not only near term, but think about it from a longer term capital perspective to say, here are the things that are in the pipeline. And for the ADA stuff, we have our ADA self-assessment, which has got, approximately $1 million worth of work, or probably more, that we're chewing our way through as we reasonably can. If we can add the sidewalk issue to that, and in addition, it is more pedestrian as well, just general sidewalks, plus pedestrian access, plus ADA, et cetera. It seemed to make sense that that's a great tool. And so the Capital Improvement Planning Committee looked at it. They were supportive of the pavement management piece as a first step. And they looked at this and think this is a good idea as well. So, and we actually were able to negotiate a little better price for this as well. So it's good news there. So again, it adds to our analytic toolbox. And at some point in the future, maybe every 5 or 10 years, you want to go back and do another scan to see what's happened. But Arlington did this about 10 years ago. They claim they're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in terms of pavement management by doing it smarter with this kind of technique. So pretty interesting technique. And I think it's a great opportunity to get better decisions about how we spend this money.
I have, I got some quick questions.
Sure.
Okay, so, of the $700,000 bucketed ARPA to sidewalks, I mean, I thought that's about like not fixing existing sidewalks, but
That's
putting
new sidewalks. That's correct.
sidewalks. So
Absolutely.
this is,
Yep.
the beta software would not identify places for.
It will not, but the beta sidewalk folks, I think, could be helpful in terms of a discussion around that.
Yeah.
So I would certainly work to engage them with a
I
discussion.
mean,
as
I'm
we've
gonna
Done this.
support
and see
this
opportunity.
because, you know, I think CIPC is doing a good job of working towards the ultimate recommendation for, but I'm open to spending more than $700,000 on
Me too.
sidewalks. I think it's gonna be pessimistic about how far your dollar will go, you know, given all the engineering costs and
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
And I just hate to see more of the 700,000 being used on studies and engineering costs instead of more just building, but we can deal with that later.
But Andrew, I do think that we have opportunity for some brain picking here of Beta.
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
Of where we spend that 700, frankly.
Okay,
And for example, there's some, I think, very interesting possibilities. We've got neighborhoods down off of Southfield Road, subdivisions that have great sidewalk networks in those subdivisions, but there's no connection between them. And so if you look sort of to the north end of those subdivisions, you might think, and the town owns property between those, so you
I
put
think
a
I know
sidewalk. Yeah.
and I think I know when you're thinking.
Yeah, you put a sidewalk between those connections, you double the linear distance that neighborhoods have access to run, walk, bike, push strollers, et cetera there. So people who look at that network from an overview standpoint, I think are likely to have some.
For the
interesting
brain
ideas.
picking, is the $50,000, is it just to do the computer study or are they also available, their professionals will also, you call them to pick up the phone and help you?
I'm hoping they will be able to do that. That was
Okay.
not part of the specific, the beta guys actually were very helpful.
Yep.
Very informative on the pavement management thing. They're not, is my impression so far, is that they're not out to, watch the meter and say, sorry, your time is up. I'm not going to talk
And
anymore.
I think Bill Cundiff during his interview said
Yeah.
he's familiar, he's
Yep.
used the software before.
Yep, he has. That's right. So, and again, it's not perfect. And Bill Cundiff, our new DPW superintendent, made the comment that several other DPW superintendents I've talked with said that you use the model, but you also save some money aside because there's always something that comes up where somebody needs something done that doesn't quite fit the model that is a good thing for the town to do. So you don't want to, use all your money there, but at least it's a great guide in terms of being generally in the right direction. And you always have the opportunity to override it and do something that makes sense.
I think it's terrific to use the algorithms that they have. Because now it's sort of, people are saying, well, all the sidewalks are in the middle of town.
Yeah.
Why don't they put them near my house? Or all the sidewalks should be around the schools, or all the sidewalks, people have ideas, but it's not backed up by anything.
Well, and like the pavement management thing, it makes it sort of more objective, less political. In the sense the model says we do this, it's not just who can make the most noise about a particular piece of road. And that sort of goes into the process, but that's not the final.
But the ARPA money was specifically recommended to build new
Sidewalk, yep.
sidewalks.
Which
And
we're-
so, and this is almost 10% of it. So that, I just think it's a lot of money. This costs more than the pavement management system.
I don't remember. I didn't think it did. Did it? How much was?
I think so.
Possible.
Anyway, well, I may be wrong. So, but anyway, boy, but you're right. We're not going to end up with all new sidewalks for $702,000, but it's a start. I still think we need to consider bonding.
For sidewalks.
We've asked capital to come back with a recommendation to put sidewalks every place we need them in town, regardless of what the cost is. And then we pick what we want to do, just like we do the roads.
Yep.
And so I still think we ought to consider down the road bonding all the road work, bonding this, so we really end up with a really nice set of improvements to both roads and sidewalks, and not this little bit that we do. So that's just an aside. That's another discussion. But boy, I hate to see 50 of the 700 go just to and not come back with a specific recommendation as to where to put new sidewalks. I want a new sidewalk on my neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we get down to it.
I've had a lot of experience buying tools for engineers and most of it's been pretty positive. And y- I'm with Kathy. I'd rather spend the money on asphalt and concrete, but $650,000 isn't going to buy a lot of sidewalks. It's not going to buy the sidewalk we'd like to build in Pine Hill Road, I don't think. But we need to make a start. These are the sorts of tools we need to invest in because labor is expensive, capital is cheap, even at the current rates, and we need to make the workers that we have as productive as possible. So I think this is a productivity tool. And I think it will pay dividends, though we'll probably never see the cash.
And Al, I think your point is a good one, and it seems to me, and Kathy, that the real cost of this is substantial if you actually did it right with sidewalks, which is another reason we had the conversation with our grants consultant. And that was one of the points that was on that conversation. I think there is a fair amount of money out there for connectivity is the way that they often describe this. And if we can put the right proposal together, there may be some interesting sources out there to augment that money.
That's a good
Well, I
point.
think Andrew ought to lean heavily on his friend Senator Eldridge to allow us to use CPC funds for sidewalks.
That would mean then he would need to lean on like a lot of other people.
That's right.
Except that a lot
Well,
of people want to do
he's,
that.
he's,
Yeah, I know.
he's now moving up in the seniority ranks.
No, he seems pretty sure of himself, and knows.
Yeah, I've got great confidence that he'll be able to do that. I've got great confidence in Andrew.
One other just thought, about like sidewalk maintenance. We've had a couple examples where, residents who live in subdivisions, and then sometimes because you go in older neighborhoods and there's not sidewalks. You go into these newer subdivisions because the subdivision approval process, they require sidewalks. So you get sidewalks, some of these places where there's just not as many pedestrians. And I think I've just had the experience walking around in some of these newer subdivisions. I don't even use the sidewalk. I just walk kind of on the side of the road because it's actually feels I don't
safe.
feel unsafe
Yeah,
doing
yep,
that.
yep.
So I just hopefully, so this tool is also gonna be scanning all of these
yeah,
sidewalks and
absolutely.
all of these, subdivisions where there might be some roots coming in through the sidewalk, but it doesn't have as much impact of,
Well, there's liability there, so.
Yep.
all right.
A lot of moving parts for this.
What we really want to do is take care of the sidewalks that people use the most.
Right.
Right. Or build ones that people will use.
Yeah, or things like around schools, for example. That's one of the prime drivers.
Absolutely.
So we should invite Andrew over to walk on Pine Hill Road with us.
Yeah, send them from your house up to the Callahan.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
but there is one particular place where I think really would be a good bang for the buck for the sidewalk, which is completing the Richards Road sidewalk, because Richards Road from Finn School ends at 85. And then there's the short section of Richards Road that goes from 85 to Woodland,
Yep.
short. That's not so, that's where you're walking like in the street. And it's so that's an
Busy road.
example. Yeah.
Yep. So you need a rating system somehow to evaluate. Yeah.
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 All
All
right.
right.
Yeah, now
Address it.
we have Beta on as sort of our general engineering consultant, is that correct?
VHB.
Yeah.
Okay,
VHB.
The beta thing is very new.
okay.
Beta did the pavement management there, and then this will be the second
Second.
time we've dealt with Beta.
Someone want to make a motion?
So I'll make a motion to approve the CIPC Quest to hire Beta at $50,000 to provide the sidewalk analysis.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. It is approved. The next item I think is yours, Kathy.
Okay, so I'm going to provide a little history too for Al
Yes.
and Marguerite. So as everybody knows, one of the buckets that the CPA surtax goes into is affordable housing. A few years ago, the town meeting voted at 3 separate times, 8, 9, and 11, to transfer the funds that were in the affordable housing bucket to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that was created, I think, I don't know, 20 years ago or so. The members of the Affordable House Trust Fund, as everybody knows, is the select board. We're required to be on it. And then there were two other people, Shopsy had a rep and Bill Boland, I guess, because of, I'm not sure. So there's seven people on it, right? So that got done. In the meantime, as Al alluded to a minute ago, once that money got put in, and it did in large part, they just didn't transfer the whole thing. So there's still some laggard money that's sitting in the CPC affordable housing bucket that we're trying to get moved over. So that's the purpose of what I'm trying to talk about tonight, is how to get that finished. So we've got all the money we can in the Affordable House Trust Fund, right? Right now, between the Affordable House Trust Fund and what's in the CPC affordable housing bucket, there's about $1 million. The process to get it all moved over is a little bit cumbersome, which Mark knows after conversations with Jay, but we're trying to at least get what got approved at town meeting finished moving over. A big chunk of it is, so far, they've moved over to date, $300 and I'm going around $55,000 of money from the CPA affordable housing bucket to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Today, we've got in that about $240,000, right? So some of it's been spent. We've also had other money come into the Affordable House Trust Fund. Like Al said, for mitigation, Brendan Holmes had $100,000 they put in it. And then it started off with $178,000 that someone had contributed to the town for affordable housing. So it started off with a seed of 278. CPC put their 340 in, and then we bought some houses over the years, right? So it's either sitting in houses, or it's sitting in this, or it's sitting in the CPC affordable housing bucket. That's the three places where we have spent affordable housing money, right? So this is pretty simple. Carla has done a beautiful spreadsheet that just has rolled it forward all the way through from the very beginning to now. I've got that in front of me. What we've got to do is not reporting to CPC. We've got to file a report with the state that basically lets the state know what's in this bucket, what's in the Affordable House Trust Fund, and where it came from, how much came from the CPA surtax and how much came from otherwise. The only issue is, so follow my math. Let's say we had, and I'm making these numbers up, we had $400,000 that went into it in total. And let's say we have 150 left at this point, but CPC put in 300 and we got 100 from something else. You know, what's left? You know, who is it? FIFO? What did you use first? So I've got, Carl and I are going to work this. We're going to do something to make some assumption as far as what's in there. And I think the assumption is what's left is CPC money, right? That will probably make them happy. Yeah. And that'll make them happy, right? That would say it's all there. So we know that we've got to follow the rules with what's in there as far as. Yeah. This is part of the funds. There's a big chunk of town money that's invested, truly invested, not just sitting in a bank account earning interest. So it's invested in the investment program, which is CPC might be mad at me saying that. Another reason they want to hold on to it because they're earning income on their piece of it, right? And interest rates are up. Investment returns have been pretty good over the last 10 years. So they've made a whole lot of money on the investment program that the CPC extra funds are in. A lot of money. So that's another reason they would prefer, it probably stays there, and okay, that's fine. We probably would if we were in their chair too, but there's just no reason for them to say no to this. That's why I'll talk to Ben Smith, show him the report from Carla. And it should be as simple as following the report, and they should then say the rest of it comes over. The rest of it's about $111,000 from those three articles. They've moved over most of it. Not sure why they moved over what they did. You can see that there were projects that happened in those years, so maybe that's why they moved it. They knew we really had projects that needed to be funded, but it doesn't match perfectly. But that's probably why they did it, but why they picked the numbers, because these are all, there's pennies on these things. So there's about $111,000 left in the CPC accounts that was previously approved by the 3 town meeting votes that should be moved over to that. Then we've got to go year by year at town meeting, at least so far. Jay hasn't figured out another way to do it, and try to keep moving it over. Right, Mark?
So how much will we have once that final piece is moved over now roughly?
We will have 240 plus 111, so about 350, 350.
Another thing that I think complicates it is that on each annual town meeting warrant, there's the CPC articles, right?
Yes.
But those are presented by the CPC, right? So if we drafted them and sponsored them, we would say, and to approve that the affordable housing bucket go directly to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, no other questions asked, right?
Mhm.
But then I think they would want to have some other, you know, strings, or they would consider them protections. And we just gotta work that out.
Which we could try to amend at town meeting if we
Yeah.
can't find an agreement.
So that's exactly what's
We
happened.
wanna
So
avoid that, yeah.
How did the affordable housing money get put into the CPC in the first place?
It's under the statute.
State
Yeah.
law.
Yeah.
So you vote, there's an administrative set of articles that we vote on before we get into the projects. And they know what's come in, and then so they basically divide it up into the buckets it has to go in. And so, you know, they know what's come in for the previous year, they know what the surtax was, they know what the state match is. So they know the money that has to be put in the bucket, so they do a set of articles saying 10% goes here, 20% goes here, so they do that. So we vote on that every single town meeting.
Does every community in the state of Massachusetts have the same problem that we're having?
As far as trying to get the money, I'm not sure.
Some do. There was someone here circulated an article about that there are other Massachusetts communities that have the same problem.
Yeah.
So if we had our druthers, we'd have a vote that just says, going forward, all the money in this bucket goes right to the Affordable Housing
Well,
Trust Fund.
But again, the simple way to avoid the issue is if you have the right language in the article for the warrant at town meeting.
But Jay can't convince CPC to do that. That's the
But-
problem.
but-
CPC changes it.
But if
Uh,
if
What?
CPC did agree to that, that would make it simple.
Well, I think we're making progress there.
Yep.
I think we
did
are
have,
too.
I did have a very good discussion with Ben. You see, he wants to be a partner.
So that's where we are. So I'll keep everybody posted. Carla has done a great job with this. So I've got the report drafted. She's going to review it as far as what needs to go to the state. We get it, and then we send it to CPC and say, we did what we're supposed to do. So now we want the rest of this money released that was previously approved.
Yep.
And they've told us more than once, that's all we have to do.
All right, and then, I mean, it also is something we should consider with some of these other appointments for CPC, Housing Authority rep, the other at-large.
Yep.
Rep. Yeah,
Make sure they're educated up front.
Amen.
yes.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. And again, Ken, just to reinforce, it's my understanding that the state's interest is to make sure that the CPC money is spent correctly.
Yeah.
And so, and I think we've been doing that. It's just a matter of reporting and convincing them that we have the records and we're doing it correctly. And that should be pretty straightforward.
While we're on this subject, I want to know whether there's people have the stomach for revisiting 5 Corderville Road and the affordable, and hold a meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to consider it.
And what would you want to do?
Acquire.
We were told by their attorney that there really is a offer and acceptance so that we would be considered interfering. She was going to keep us posted if it fell through. She's Northborough. But she definitely said we asked if we could, and she said no.
She knows that, yeah,
Yeah.
we're interested.
Okay.
She represents the state. And she herself is involved. I don't know if she's on the select board North Board, but she's involved. So she understood what we wanted to do. And so I'm not gonna say she's on our side, but she was very sympathetic for what we were trying to do. So she said she would let us know if she felt there's an opportunity for us to step in, but she absolutely said we would, and Jay also said so.
Yeah, you can't interfere.
I understand. I
October is the date that the 9-month demolition delay
right.
ends. But it looks like they're holding out for it. I mean,
So basically, the main reason to get these monies transferred in the beginning is that when a property like 5 Corderville comes up, we're able to purchase it and save it rather than losing it because we can't get to town meeting in time to get the
And
money.
Also, it's,
exactly.
I think it's almost just morally wrong that this money was appropriated for this purpose and just, it was just tied up in bureaucracy, not being used for that purpose. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so there's nothing to vote on yet. It's just making some progress.
Now, we just got the report, and I don't think we need to vote on the report. Of course, it's got to
Okay.
go in. It's a factual thing.
All right, so I think we're making good time here. I would like to take a brief recess. For a mid-meeting recess, 5 minutes.
I'm good.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is approve new public comment policy. So we've rescinded the old unconstitutional policy and the draft policy that was in the packet. This is a version of a public comment policy that Jay Tallerman's firm put together after that decision as kind of a template for other municipalities. We had talked about it and made some tweaks to it, I think. I mean, I know I wrote down some potential comments. Does anyone want to start the discussion here? Marguerite? Sam?
I'm happy to start. I mean, for me, the value is not getting dragged down into the weeds. I think the critical thing is that we have a reasonable policy. I'm not eager to argue about nets and nets and wording. I think this is close enough for me. And I'm also open to, changes or whatever, but I'd like to get it done and move on. And something that is, hopefully will stand up under legal scrutiny.
Yeah.
And provide what I think are reasonable guidelines for people. So I'm not eager to overthink this one and get, dragged down into the details personally. So.
Okay, so you like the draft that's already in there?
I'd vote to support it.
Okay.
I'd also vote to support other versions of this if people have good suggestions.
Okay. Kathy?
I'm with Sam on this one. I'm perfectly fine with this. There's a misspelling on the first page under first paragraph. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, permitted to peak. It should be speak. Other than that, that's my only comment. I think it's, I think this is well written. Andrew Pfaff and I went down to the annual, whatever the group is that does finance in the state. So it was a finance committee meeting, advisory committee type meeting. But they had some town managers that talked and they all unanimously said, if I were you guys, I wouldn't even have public comment. That's where it was kind of going in that meeting. And there was just a lot of discussion. I didn't say a word. And of course, the decision had not been, was it? No, maybe it had been handed down. But anyway, so nobody brought up Southborough, but there's a lot of people that think you shouldn't even have public comment.
So, I mean, one suggestion I had is in paragraph 1 where it says the chair or his or her designee shall devote a period at each meeting to public comment. I would just say nay.
I'm happy with me.
Yep, works for me.
Okay, the other things that I had were really just nits that are not all that super important.
Well, mine was it.
You want me to go over them? Or?
Sure.
So under 3, where it says attorneys and agents who are permitted to speak must identify whom they represent. I would say whom they represent for purposes of their public comment.
Yep.
And under 5. I don't think we need to, because this is a policy that binds every board that is appointed by the select board. It's not
Right.
So I think a chair of a different board could have some more flexibility on 5 about if 2 people were from an organization, both wanted to speak to something. I mean, you could say that's okay. So I would say instead entities whose spokespersons are permitted to speak during the public comment period must identify themselves and the entity for which he or she is speaking, including his/her official position within said entity, et cetera, et cetera. So that they don't necessarily have to select a single spokesperson.
So what is it you're changing?
Okay, 5, you see that?
I see 5, but I'm not sure what you changed.
I'll show you that.
Must select a single spokesperson.
Entities
Yeah.
whose spokesperson or spokespersons are permitted to speak must identify themselves in the entity. I mean, is there a situation where someone says, hi, I'm from the Southborough Gardeners or the Southborough, I'm trying to remember the Southborough Organization for Schools. Does the chair absolutely have to have a strict rule? You can only let one person from
I'd be fine with letting the chair determine.
Yeah.
Whether it's one person or multiple
You
people.
just, it's just the rule, it should be the case that you can't say, I'm from the, like Massachusetts, Citizens for,
XYZ. whatever it
yeah,
is.
or
And have 10 people from that same organization
just-
basically make the same point.
the basic comment is if you're gonna speak on behalf of an organization, you have to say like who you are, that's all. Right?
Well, there's a difference between someone speaking on behalf of an organization and an individual speaking for themselves. And that seems like an awfully fine line.
Yeah, so that's where it says we're entities who are permitted to speak. I mean, only people can speak. So that's why.
I'd almost drop the
Just
whole
take the
thing.
Whole thing out. I mean, it already says.
We can amend it if it becomes a problem.
Yeah, we could,
Just take the whole thing. out.
yeah,
Take out number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
fix it later if it's a problem.
okay, so, just to review, I think you have a comment?
Yes. Yes, this is a document to give legal protection to board members in the town, correct?
Yes,
Well, partly, but also give up, but give individuals an opportunity to.
To speak.
We
but
understand the
I-
rules to,
I mean, I'm glad that that does that, but my question with it, for instance, there are a lot of terms that are obviously terms of art. For instance, the 4 things you can't have: true threats, incitement to imminent lawless conduct, statements that were found by a court of law to be defamatory, and sexually explicit statements made to appeal to prurient interests. Now, I know true threat is a legal term, but if I'm Joe Schmo and I'm coming in off the street and I want to talk in a meeting and I see that these are the 4 things I cannot do, what's a true threat as opposed to, I mean, it's legal speak. Do you see what I mean? I'm thinking of, do we need a separate one for people who are actually attending the meetings who aren't attorneys? I mean, I'm joking, but
it's legal speak because the attorney wrote it.
yeah,
but-
exactly.
And
So,
because it-
so
it's
can
driven
you
by
yell,
case-
can
Well,
you
the-
scream in a meeting?
Case law.
Yes,
Okay,
you can yell.
but what is a true threat then? I mean, it's
Well,
like,
what this does is it allows the chair to say, that's enough and you're done.
That's a threat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but, okay, put it this way.
but do you
I
see
think-
my point?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I'm just kind of deferring a little bit to.
I mean, I'll vote for
Jay's-
this, but I'm
yeah.
just saying,
Expertise here. There's other municipalities that are wrestling with the same thing. It should be the case where someone is so angry that the chair feels that there's they say things that are truly threatening, the chair should have discretion to say, okay, I think this, I'm gonna I don't recognize you to speak anymore. I think that's what this covers.
I mean, at that point, you're probably going to call somebody else anyway.
Reset.
Yeah.
but statements that were found by a court of law to be defamatory. And in other words, someone else has said them and they've been judged defamatory.
Yes.
That's. Okay, but I'm just saying, this will be good in a court of law, but sorting it out in an actual meeting may be more complex.
Well,
Absolutely. But
this is dealing with circumstances that are very, very, very unlikely.
but that may wind up in a
Yeah,
court of law,
yeah.
which you got to protect yourself against, I think. So.
The alternative would be to have a more policy, which is even more complicated, I think, defining these things. And it actually is pretty like a situation would be, if there was, it means just what it says. If someone sued someone for defamation and there was a finding that what you said about that person is defamatory, you can't.
Okay, but, all right, I'm just saying in terms of what an average person would say. It sounds like someone else previous to the meeting we're talking about had done that language and it had been judged defamatory. So now that, okay, but that's not gonna help for the conduct of meetings. If
Well,
somebody
It
did-
will help though, if the
Right.
chair, for example, understands the distinction there and
Yep.
can say, you violated, section number 5 or whatever it is.
It's a big improvement because the prior policy, the standard was rude. If something was rude.
Yeah.
That's
And,
even harder to
That's
define.
right.
yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll go with this because I know it's probably very important to have, but I'm just,
Yeah, there's no easy way to fix that, I guess,
Yeah.
that I.
So the changes that we had were, so for under one, instead of shall be may,
yeah.
correct peak to speak, it's just a spelling thing.
Yep.
On 3, at the end, attorneys and agents who are permitted to speak must identify whom they represent for purposes of their public comment, and would just eliminate 5.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so I move that we approve and adopt the public participation at meetings of public bodies policy with those amendments.
Second.
Oh, you've got there's a hand. Okay, so we have motions been made and seconded.
Mr. Miller
All right,
wants to speak.
but I think we can hear what Mr. Miller has to say.
Yeah.
All right. Please bring him over.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, that's very kind of you, having made the motion and seconded to allow me to public comment on this policy.
Well, it seemed if we were gonna have a public comment policy, we should have some public comment. on it.
And yeah, I definitely appreciate it. Hey, listen, I'm very much in support of what you're doing. I thought Andrew's amendments were spot on. I think you're quite right to eliminate paragraph number 5. If I can just offer though, here's my one very modest reservation, and I just want to throw it out to you to hear what you might think of it, because I've really appreciated the discussion up until this point. My concern was about the second sentence of the first numbered paragraph. That's the long sentence with the 4 semicolons and the typo that you've already moved to correct. And the concern is when it says, this is the defining essentially the chair's discretion in all matters. The point of the meeting at which the public comment period takes place, that's fine. The duration of the public comment period, the number of individuals and or entities who are permitted to speak, which individuals and or entities are permitted to speak. That's the part of it, that last part, that I personally find just, and again, I'm not sure about this. I just put it to you as a concern, because it seems that effectively that's giving license or cover for a board or committee chairperson to act in bad faith and to decide that I simply don't want to hear from any particular individual, and therefore, under this policy, I've got the directive or the imprimatur to do so and to discriminate or to refuse to allow a particular person to speak simply because I don't like them. And so I just raise it as a possible concern that if it as a statement of public policy, one that appears again to give room for a chair, and any chair that operated in bad faith hopefully wouldn't be reappointed. But it just gave me a certain amount of discomfort, and I just wanted to put it to you for your consideration.
Evan, yeah, I hear your point, but I think that's just a matter of degree. I think that you could use any of those other points in that paragraph to discriminate against somebody. So, you get 2 minutes, et cetera.
Yeah, that's
I think
true. And
that's-
I guess
I
I
think
would
that's
be in
useful.
favor. Yeah, Sam, I guess I would be in favor. And I full disclosure, I believe, and it's a little bit different for the select board, I think, than for some of the other boards and committees, that are perhaps sometimes less controversial or that have less crowded agendas. I mean, I understand like the need to move expeditiously, and I've been witness many times myself to where, public comment sort of takes over and makes it very difficult for you folks to operate. My own position is that I'm very philosophically much in favor of public comment, however long it takes, because I think it's often the most interesting part of the meeting.
I think Kevin's got a point. Sam, if you look at the last sentence, I think that negates what you just said. It says that everybody should get an equal amount of time.
Right.
Determine what the time is.
Well, yeah, so that I'm okay with as long as everybody gets the same amount or wherever that is. So I think he's got a point here. It does, that one is more subjective than the others.
Right. I would just encourage you not to have language that could be
Which
construed.
individuals are permitted to speak is usually subjective.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so, but.
you know, I guess I would be open to that then, because the most common situation is just the meeting is going on way too long and the comment is just getting very repetitive.
Right.
Just like town moderator has to.
Yep.
But that's pretty much covered by the number of individuals or entities who are permitted to
Right,
speak.
yeah. Again, my goal is to get it done, so I wouldn't fight
Okay.
about it, but I wouldn't object to taking that out.
You would not object to?
Would not object, I would keep it in, but to keep it
What
moving, I
exactly
would.
they're taking it out.
Okay, so I guess I've been convinced that,
I'd leave it in, because that's what board chairs do. They pick on the people who don't want to speak. That's, I mean, it's fact of life.
So you'd like it to
Yeah.
come out. Is that what you're saying?
Leave it in, she said.
Leave it in?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would take it out, but sounds like it's out then.
all right. I think how to do this.
3.5 to 1.5.
Yeah.
To withdraw the motion.
Okay, yeah, how about this? I'm gonna withdraw the motion that I made. I move that we approve the draft policy in the packet with the following changes. On one, change shall to may. Take out the clause which says which individuals and or entities are permitted to speak. Now correct the peak to speak. Add the additional language to number 3 that I had suggested and remove number 5.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
Right.
All right.
Without a policy for an hour here, so we've made it back into sheltered positions.
Good job.
Good work.
Okay. The next one, you see in the packet. I got a letter from the Metro West Regional Transit Authority, which basically says, as the chair, you are drafted into being on.
Not quite. Yeah, your designee can do it, actually.
You approve.
You are you are by
approve.
default
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
WR.
In fact, they list Mr. Healy still as the representative, so
There you go.
you're safe for a little while.
Okay. Does anyone else want to be on the Metro West Regional Transit Authority? I don't think.
Would it make your life
even
easier if
suggested it has to
someone
be a
else
select
did it?
board, Right?
No, it doesn't have to be. It said
Designee.
designee. I looked at the state law for
Designate.
this, so it said designee.
I mean, someone that really, I've never taken Metro West Regional
The ride stuff,
Transit,
yeah.
but I mean, does anyone know of anyone who would be better suited to do this or?
Don't know. I guess I would make the point that this is actually an interesting thing in the sense, one of the things we struggle with is finding sort of transportation within the town. These guys have this route number 7 that goes through the town, but it doesn't really do the transit, the T station up to the business community, for example, on that process. So it'd be great to find ways to get some funding or resources to improve that network. Not that there's a great chance that we could do that, but at least having someone sit on these discussions and say, hey, we'd like this in Southborough. would be
Sounds like
interesting.
maybe you would be.
I'm interested in the concept, but I don't have a lot of bandwidth. I mean, if nobody wants to do it, I guess I would volunteer.
Okay,
but I'm
'cause it
not-
did
There
say
you go,
four-
volunteered.
four meetings.
You volunteer
meetings.
4 meetings a year.
Yeah,
You volunteer.
You know,
Okay.
you're doing a valuable contribution on WRA.
well, not necessarily valuable directly to the town, but again, I think this is an interesting thing. If somebody else wants to do it, folks, I would be happy to.
If you'll do it for this year,
I'll do it. Yeah, okay.
I'll do it next year. How about that?
Okay.
Do it for a year.
Okay,
Yeah.
And then we'll
Okay.
try to switch off.
okay.
I mean, the things they said you have to do. Appoint an administrator, approve a budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do You want me to make the motion?
Be
Here we
my
go.
guest, be my guest.
I move that the select board appoint, okay, do we need a term for this? Let's see. How's it? Move that,
Just until further notice.
okay. I move that, the select board appoint Sam Stivers to be our representative to the Metro West Regional Transit Authority Advisory Board.
Second,
All those in favor?
I even vote for myself.
All those opposed?
now that this is done,
No.
so, I had an employee start today and she takes commuter rail out. She has no way to get to her office, right? And you know where my office is, you know where that is. So we're gonna pay for Uber to get her back and forth. So I don't know what else to do.
Wow.
So there, it is a problem that last mile that we've heard
Yep.
John Wood and others talk about as far as getting people from the train station to where they're supposed to go.
Yep.
So,
Okay, so now we're getting into the last part of our agenda, and these items are kind of interrelated. So we've got the goals spreadsheet that put in who kind of wanted to do what. Some of them, a very small number of them did not get.
Yeah, but pretty small though.
Yeah.
We had many
yeah.
more vacancies last year.
Yeah.
This-
I mean, I went through and I found about 80% of them I think are okay with the list. And a few of them, we have to have multiple names. I think we ought to pick one or two people.
Yeah.
For them, but there are very few that are open. And there's some of them that are open that I think are sort of, they're gonna happen anyway. We don't need a lot of.
Yep.
up-
Well, I'll just
oversight.
go explain kind of why I raised my hand for the ones I did. So the one about the newsletter, that's something that I had been talking with Vanessa about before. And it came out of the employee survey that we did and Lisa Braccio and I were the reps to that. So, and there was an interesting thing in the community advocate that caught my attention where Westboro was advertising the fact that it was beginning a new
Which one,
No.
newsletter.
which one are you talking about?
Third one down.
Yeah, third one down.
Where it's got so many people?
Yep.
Oh, no, no,
no, you don't.
that's
Up to-
Marguerite and Andrew, which I
Yeah.
thought was right. Yeah, I thought that was a
Yes.
good,
Okay.
good pairing.
Why don't you just focus on the ones that have either nothing there or more than two?
Or a problem.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's a
the
good
next
idea.
one had many people. I thought we need to actually
Oh, regional dispatch,
yeah,
there's
we need to-
3.
pick one or two. Yeah.
The only reason I put my name there is I'm glad to assist with the publicizing of anything, but
Right.
I'm not really very good at the nuts and bolts of it.
Well,
I
but
can-
again, I think it's helpful to have people to bounce ideas off of for how we do this conceptually.
I don't
So
know.
And
think
the reason you can't do 3 is you gotta be quorum, so you gotta have 2 on any of these, or you got a problem with the meeting.
So I was happy with all the ones on this first page, except the one where it had 3 people for the public.
So that's Marguerite, Sam
Al,
and Al.
Al, yeah.
So I could go out of there, if you want.
So Marguerite, let me just say this, what's gonna be done here is probably more up Al and Sam's alley than yours as far as the initial part of it, because they need to do a deep dive into numbers, and things that, then as it goes on, maybe it's something you do step into as far as helping to, present it to the community, which is what we're gonna have to do, but I think that, I'm trying to save you some work here. I did, unless you're really deep into spreadsheets and stuff like these 2 are, I think you probably want to, maybe not do that one.
Thank you, yes.
Okay, so,
And the only other one that didn't have somebody was the Oak Hill truck route.
Well, I don't know, I mentioned that
Yeah.
one, but we just can't forget that, Flag was not the problem.
Yep.
Oak Hill was, it's got 51 trucks going up and
Yep.
down it every day,
Yep.
flying down that hill, going up the hill.
Yep.
So I think we just, I'm happy to put my name there because I put it, I did it. So just put me there for the moment.
okay, I mean, I think it's also more broadly paid for that traffic study.
Yep.
that VHB did, look at the whole town and
Yeah.
they have their suggestions that were just, instead of just let it sit on the shelf. act on a
Yeah.
couple of them.
Yeah, Somebody to give these occasional nudge, which
Yeah.
I think is
This
the
one's
idea.
tough because of the Ashland problem.
Yep.
And so I'm happy to re-engage with Greg and see what he says we can do.
Other
at the
ideas
next
there.
Select board,
Okay, good. So on the second page, again, I thought we were generally pretty good. The second one about the funding.
Ooh, Boris. So I'll come up with that one.
Funded.
There's plenty who,
I
so,
thought we ought to pick one there, maybe.
so I'll come off that one. I got plenty of financial stuff. to
I'll
do.
come off too. Everybody will come off.
So Al and Andrew, you guys,
How do you feel? Okay,
the pension one.
Yeah.
I mean, we could work together on it.
Long discussion. President of artificial intelligence and NASDAQ.
Oh, my goodness.
It's really about risk assessment, not really understanding risks. Well, but this one came out of a discussion for pension obligation bonds. And so, in fact, I think there are two elements. One is, at least my proposal was that we actually get a special act to allow us to do that, which takes a year or so at least to do. And
Yeah,
then
that's what I was,
the question is, do we actually then, we need the analysis to say, does it make sense with a particular point in the interest rate cycle?
because we have now a little bit of a model with the municipal voting age thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Where we endorsed a special act and then we work with our
A
state
representative.
representative to
Yep.
sponsor it. So this is one where the other towns that have done this
Yep.
have done it. It's just you got to do this before you can even do the math
The
about.
analysis, yeah. So Arlington,
Yeah.
for example, I got the special act that Arlington did. It was pretty simple. So getting something like that in the legislative pipeline to me is the parallel track with the analysis. So then you'd be ready when the interest rate cycle is. We missed our
I
opportunity.
wish we just done it,
Year or
you know,
so
I wish we'd done it when they were so, I mean, there's so much, you now wish it would
2 or
be done when they were
3%,
lower,
yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and so you two are gonna do that one?
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
We got a legal element and then.
I volunteered to do the one that's last that has no one. You can put me there because it's already done.
Okay. And
There's nothing to
that's
do.
also a good, a little bit related is about
I'm just joking. That was actually done, so
Okay.
it doesn't matter. who puts it on.
quarterly reviews
Yep.
and
How about the CPC
well,
one? up
before,
there?
before,
Oh,
we move-
CPC.
before we move off that, Sam, that, for doing quarterly, this is a little bit related to that goal. For quarterly reviews, which we had been doing before, which we want to continue to do. Does it make sense for Kathy to be our point person to work with Brian and Carla to coordinate getting keeping up with the quarterly reviews? You can speak to that.
Yeah, so, and it's Andrew Pfaff too, of advisory.
Yes.
He's integral to it. So I'd love to do that.
Okay.
That one I feel like is kind of right up my alley. So I'd love to replace Chelsea as far as the select board, person. that does that.
Another idea on that is, as part of that, it would also be helpful to, since we're making a priority about the CPC funds.
Yeah.
To just track, to see the spreadsheet that Carl put together, just keep a regular update on that. So we know at each, this is the balance and that are in some of these.
Yeah, keep the buckets so we.
Yeah.
that. But we did skip, Sam's right, we skipped the CPA surtax one. So,
But we need to pick one or maybe two there.
Well, the CPC is a math thing, really, basically.
Well,
that's,
no,
no, it's not. So I think you'd be a good one on that one, Marguerite.
it is communication.
So I'd like to do that with Marguerite, Sam, if you'd let us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a big deal because it is a tax increase.
That's right. So this is going to
Well,
be a marketing job. So no,
Could
this is
be,
not.
but if it done right, it's not a tax increase. And that's a key
Right.
communication problem.
Oh,
Right.
That it pays back
Yeah.
more than you.
let's just call it what it is,
Well,
please.
that's-
So this is
Yeah.
This is why I don't want Al to be on this. because
That's
I don't
right,
think-
that's right.
So Marguerite, you do this one, please, with me. And Andrew Pfaff will work with us on this one too.
And the DOR thing is sort of a no
Well, I
brainer.
said, that's why I put my name there
Yeah.
because it's already done.
I volunteered for that.
Yeah, no,
myself.
anyway,
That's
so
right.
it doesn't matter, but
Okay, so
It definitely
for
matters.
the surcharge, who is our,
that's Marguerite and
Marguerite,
Kathy. So
yeah.
you're taking Sam out of that. one.
okay, all right.
And then the one with the blank, anybody can put the name there. It's already done.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants credit, go for
Okay,
And then down below,
it. So we'll let Mark see
all
who's.
right.
his
The next
favorite person
interesting
is.
one is abolish the Public Works Planning Board. That is also something that would require a special act.
Yep.
And Okay, that's one that I put as a goal, and I just want to be very clear. That is not to say no to the concept of any type of a future
Yeah, 70 boards.
advisory committee
Yeah.
to help the DPW, including of things like recycling and things like that. But it's just,
The
the
structure of this
structure
doesn't
of
work.
this is
That's
so weird.
Yep.
Yep, I think we ought to be making it, a policy that we ought to be trying to simplify the lines of authority. You know, we just had a tree hearing, which, you know, has got, you know, multiple committees that have to opine. And, you know, here we have
Over two.
the DPW is our responsibility, but we have a planning board that's,
On the tree hearing thing, that's a function of what roads are designated as scenic roads.
roads.
That's what multiplies the number of these.
well, we
That's
might
a
want to
big-
talk about that at a later date.
So we've already agreed that we want to strive to do this, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
So
Yep.
one person just needs to say, okay, let the other two do it.
All right, so the first step is just to have a vote at town meeting.
So Sam, just
Get the
so you
special
are
act.
on the,
Just get it
you are
over.
on the,
I'm voting to abolish myself, yes.
It's gonna be
Okay,
on the
all right.
board. That's your
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, but you need to find the right language.
I'm happy to withdraw from that.
I'm happy to withdraw, actually.
I'll,
That's probably one.
do-
person.
doing away with committees is something I'm.
So do,
That's right, my sense is you're more focused on this.
So that's yours, Al.
okay,
Okay,
Hey, Andrew,
right.
can we back up to the prior page? There's stuff at the bottom that we didn't talk about
okay.
that I think is worth keeping on the radar.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm okay with the first one. And then,
So the build a model of dispatch options, that's kind
we've
of,
already done that.
Yeah.
That's on the first page. And I
So-
thought Kathy might be interested in the ARPA funds.
Well, I'm keeping the spreadsheet, so that's
Yeah,
easy. So just
that's
put me
you
there.
anyway.
okay.
That one's easy.
And then the,
I'd get rid of that one because I'm already doing that.
5-year projection. Okay, we can bag that one too. Okay,
you
good.
taking another one that's already done?
That's-
No, that one's not
we're-
done, Al, but it's on there twice.
We're eradicating it.
So the updated 5-year projection of,
Oh, wait a minute. Where is the 5-year projection?
Bottom of the
Yeah.
other page.
It's 10 years. Wait a minute. Where's my 10-year one?
oh, I get it, I get it. Yeah,
Yeah. So get rid of that one because we're doing the 10-year.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but I just wanted to get closure on all these things.
Yeah, so Mark,
So,
so get rid of everything.
So no one volunteered for enhanced staff training. I can raise my hand for that. I mean, the dilemma has always just been of identifying the type of training that people want to do, right? And
So there's your
money-
partner
money?
right there.
Yeah. I mean, I think one way to think about it is, like, we get these, each department submits a budget, and then there's a line item. Each department has this relatively small amount of money. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
It's useful to just, maybe, like, in the next budget cycle, we just get some more information about how that was actually used and
Yep.
what are things that people like? Are there things like, I guess I'm now more thinking about things like kind of conferences as training instead of,
or individual.
like offsite type of training, but I don't know. I'm happy to work with Vanessa on it.
Okay. All right, that's got that page then, right?
I mean, because, MMA definitely has some really interesting.
Yep.
Trainings.
Yep.
All right, there's a lot of. I see multiple ones for
The
community.
first two, yeah.
Okay,
The
so
first
for the,
one, the first part's easier. We already talked about that tonight. That's kind of easy, I think. The next part's not so easy.
so for the 120 Turnpike Road, I would like to stay on that maybe with someone because I'm
So
already kind of.
Al and Kathy, or excuse me, Andrew and Kathy, because you guys have been talking about it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
What about the first one up there, the affordable
Yeah,
housing?
somebody needs to come off that one. I'm happy to come off of it, and let Marguerite and
I think there's a communication aspect to that, certainly, that Marguerite has expressed interest in.
because we're talking about getting rid, really truly, reformatting Shopsy and that, so that's a big deal.
And
So
getting public support. This is
That's the first one on,
Affordable housing development.
because you're taking me off that one.
Yep. So Kathy goes off. it. And then at the bottom, there's planned support for increasing senior population. We can.
So-
That might have been mine. I can't remember.
It was definitely part of yours.
And then educate residents about affordable housing. We're really doing that in the thing above.
Yeah,
So,
I get rid of that
Get
one.
rid of that.
And then Sam, you want to do the plan?
Yeah, I'll work on that.
Are we now moving to the infrastructure page?
Yep.
And I thought we were okay on the top part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on a different one. You and I are on it. Ooh, okay, fully staffed by
On
the end of
bottom one,
October.
on that page, we've got the facilities.
What do we decide for the first one under, I'm sorry, community development?
Oh, I did it. That's good.
Looks like you're on it with Kathy.
Okay,
And there's already CIPC is already like well
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
process. It's just,
and then the second one for 120 is you and Kathy?
Is Al and Kath.
And wait a minute, the first one is Marguerite now. So the
Marguerite.
affordable housing development, that's Marguerite now. And the second one, which is 120, is
Andrew,
Andrew and Kathy.
Kathy. And then I'm on the first one on the bottom, and we eliminated the second one. For community development.
are you talking about the additional task stuff?
Yeah,
Or
the additional task is the bottom one.
I view that as kind of like optional stuff.
This stuff is gonna happen anyway. He's already started installing the streetlights. We will have to deal with Flag School when the Historic Society moves out.
Well, the IMA for Algonquin.
We gotta make sure that gets done, Mark, but that's really not us. That's really regional that's gotta get it done. So we just gotta make sure they do it.
We've named the pocket park, and we're working on it. Got a recommendation.
Yep. So those, I think,
Senior
are in pretty
center's
good
gonna
shape
happen.
without putting anybody on.
Flag School probably could use some,
Well,
reinforcement.
Capital's gonna deal with it first and come to us.
and streetlights are gonna happen, so
They're already happening.
maybe less focus needed there, so.
Yep.
And that's it, right?
Okay. So then this is a good segue then into discussion of town administrator goals.
Yeah.
So. I'll let Mark chime in here too, because I know when you did your self-evaluation, you identified two. So please correct me if I'm wrong, in the Mark's current contract, there's a performance evaluation aspect of it where we work with Mark to set goals, and then with the goal of a year from now, talking about those in the performance evaluation, and you suggest two, and then we suggest two. So what were your two suggested ones again?
So I think the two that I had listed, one was, it's an effort that is somewhat, we're starting to begin it with,
Yep.
with Personnel Board in terms of the employee handbook. According to the SAP bylaw, Personnel Board has the right to promulgate rules and regulations in accordance with the authority given to them by the bylaw. And, as you know, that personnel is kind of a fluid thing. It's not easy to try to be adaptive to things as they happen when you can only change a bylaw once a year or once every or twice a year. And so the board is taking a look at, in the employee handbook, they want to establish some of the things that are in the bylaw as rules and regulations. And then look to try to slim down that bylaw a little bit. over the course of the next year or so. And so that's one of the efforts, working with Labor Council and Personnel Board to achieve that. I think, employee handbook was also something, that was a select board goal, last time around, time before. And it was something that just really, it never gotten done. The second one is something that, is on your goals, which is the financial and the policy review with the Department of DLS, the Department of Revenue. That's going to be a fairly substantive process, given that it's going to involve coordinating with a lot of different groups in reviewing these policies and getting that management study or the financial study done. So those are the two that I would suggest, for my goals, and then obviously interested as to what the board would want to add.
Right. Who wants to go first? Kathy?
So I think I've got three here. So the first one is, Mark, we think we have hired, we're all cautiously optimistic that we have a really good DPW head coming July 24th, right? So one of the goals that I'd like to see set tonight is that we basically charge you with his successful integration. So that he gets off to a really good start. And we really have a plan for him. We, have a list before he gets here as far as projects, et cetera. But you're in charge of that. I think you've got a great relationship with Chief Achilles and Chief Newell. This is the third of the big three departments. So
It seems that's we're integrating somebody every year.
yeah,
So-
but you're really key to getting this to work, right? You two need to work really well together. So that's number one. Number two, IT, MTC. I want to task you with, by the time we sit here a year from now, that we have truly found a way to use the best of both, that we really have a cohesive, healthy, positive relationship between MPC. And I think that means getting to know those guys, understanding their talents, and making sure that we really use them to the max. But specifically, a year from now, having either moved to the cloud or at least having specific plans in place to complete the move. We've been talking about it for about 3 years now, so it's time to get that part done. And if we need more resources, you're just going to have to tell us, I need more resources. Jay needs more help to get it done, whatever you need. But I think we've really got to say, we need to get to the cloud. I think you're on the cloud with your business. I am.
Yep.
Your law firm probably is. So it just,
Yep.
we're way behind this. So we need to get that part done. So that's number two. And number three is to work with me on what I call this agile-like system, to have a way that we know the select board has a way to check to know what's going on. We've got our projects someplace so we can look, we know what the status is at any time, and we don't have to keep calling you to say, where do things stand, like we do now. All five of us call you and so I think it's going to save you time too. So
But I enjoy those conversations.
well, I know you do, but it's kind of like when someone tells me they love still going to a bank and seeing the teller, right? You're going, really?
Wait a minute. I like those tellers.
Okay, all right.
You know how many
Which one?
people, do you know how many people come in to the townhouse just to see David?
I do know,
Treasurer's
I
office?
do know some people like to walk in and pay their tax
People
bill,
go
whatever.
transfer
Okay, so to
station
each
to
his own, right? But I'd like you to have more time to do other things. And so I do know someone who's doing the very same thing that I'm talking about with a town. Coincidentally, so I want you to work with me on that. That's my goal. I'm assigned to that goal. So that's my three proposed goals for this year for you.
Sam?
I have a list.
Okay, but
I know, I got.
our,
Is it double digit?
Actually it is, but I will carve it down. I agree with Kathy. I think, again, the integration of the DPW superintendent is critical. And I think that the technology integration coordination is also critical. We've got a fantastic resource there in the MTC. And finding a way to leverage that and taking advantage of that knowledge, I think, is a huge advantage that we have that most places don't have, frankly. And we couldn't pay those guys to do what they do for us. So it seems to me that that's a critical one, and I would suggest that that MTC chair has a strong input in terms of success or not in terms of this metric going forward. So I think that one goes beyond us in terms of the evaluation process. And I like the tracking thing in the sense that that gives an opportunity, I think, to be able to also track the goals that we have here. Because I look at what we're doing with the Master Plan Implementation Committee, we've got a spreadsheet there that, at least in theory, tracks status for the master plan goals in terms of what's happening, who's responsible for what next milestones, what's going to happen, et cetera. It is not fully functional yet, but the concept, I think, is a good one as a communication device to what's going on. So, and if we have that structure that Kathy is talking about, you can actually use it for a variety of different things, all the way from things like letters that come in from constituents, from residents here. I see a lot of that stuff. I have very little insight in terms of, how those are resolved. I'm hoping that we're following up on those things. Sometimes I hear we're not, sometimes I hear we are. It would be great not only for an internal process, but for residents to be able to look in and say, this letter was expressed concern about this, and here's what happened with it, and so on and so forth. So that kind of structure, I think, can be very valuable. And the other category that I had is got a lot of potential pieces to it. And I guess I would be interested in Mark's thoughts about this, but it seems to me, I look to the town administrator to take the lead in a big item somewhere or other. And that could be something like, a more general one. I know that Marguerite's talked about a lot, and overall communication with the public, because it's a two-way street. People have to listen, but as folks know, I spend a fair amount of time at the transfer station listening to people. I'm stunned by how many people have no clue about what's going on in town for the most part. I mean, there's the usual suspects who are pretty well informed, but I get questions ranging from, what's the select board to, other kind of things about, what's happening with the pile of dirt at the corner of St. Mark's Street and Corderville Road. But again, some better way to, and we do work with Twitter and Facebook and so forth kind of things, but I don't know. I think there's got to be a better way to communicate more generally with people. I don't know what the answer is there. But I
Well,
think
that's
that could be-
part of the idea of the newsletter item.
Yep, yep.
Right, is it internal, is it external, or is it both? And then
Yep.
you'd have to have a realistic
That's understand.
schedule of,
Yep.
we
don't want to create a position that takes 10 people to actually manage that and, spend full time doing it.
Yeah.
But I hope there are better ways to actually do that more universally. Maybe not.
Well, one good example is, when Karen sent out that,
Yeah, the DPW postcard. Yeah.
everyone thought it was great,
Yeah, well,
things like that.
And the electric rate postcard that
Yeah.
went out, that was hugely impactful. I had many people say, wow, that's great. I'm so happy that the town did that. That saved me a lot of money. But that's, very specific thing versus more general stuff. So, and other groups do it. Senior Center sends out a lot of communications that are very helpful to people. But if there are a better way to do that, and there may not be an easy way to do that, I don't know. That leads into another one for me is more of a customer service kind of implementation, as far as getting feedback from the public and thinking about what kind of metrics we want to use to determine, are we actually, an organization that people look at and say, wow, these folks communicate with us, they give us information, when I come into the townhouse and I see that a lot. I mean, I think we do a good job of customer service in many areas. And so being able to track that and report on it, I think, is something a lot of organizations focus on. Another possible, and I'm sort of throwing out a list here of candidates for this, and I'm not suggesting that all of them need to be done, but I think it'd be great if we could pick one of these and think about it. Integration, streamlining the town's permitting process. We've been talking about that for years. And again, there are certain problems with that, but I think that that's a place where that could benefit a lot of development work around town that a lot of people care about. The grant stuff is on my list. We've talked about that. So, anything else here that's worthy of it. Some of the other things I had, people have touched on. So again, to me, pick one where a town administrator can take the lead and actually make it happen on a big issue that spans a lot of these areas here. I think that is of great value and could have a significant impact for the town overall. So I don't know how to put that on the list that Kathy had. I'm not sure which one I'd substitute if I had to substitute it, but
Marguerite, Al, which one of you wants to go first here?
Okay, I only had two suggestions. One is to move to the cloud. I think that would save a lot of aggravation. And the other, again, the newsletter thing. Every Friday when I get your one-page summary of what happened this week,
Yep.
it's so nice.
That's
I
great.
print them all out.
Yep.
And I save them. It's very personable, right? It feels very friendly and personal, and the tone is really good. And it sort of gives me a good sense of like, this is what happened this week. This is what happened this week. I love that. So what the school does a thing every Friday, every parent looks forward to it, just sort of a summary of what went on and what's going to happen. It's short. It doesn't have to have 100 pictures or GIFs or anything like that. And it's just maybe 3 paragraphs. And I think it would be, I wouldn't even say hire somebody to do it. I say you do it.
post it on the website to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Exposure to it,
It's
maybe.
just, it's such a nice thing, and it's such a, it kind of overcomes the chasm of there's the town government and there's everybody else.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
I think you could be a
Hugely,
celeb.
hugely helpful for me. I mean, we haven't had that in the past. I was never previously as informed about what's going on as a select board member, as when I'm getting these kind of things. I would ask questions. I could ask questions and find out, but it's a great overview. And again, I think Marguerite, what I hear you saying is maybe expanding that to take pieces of that or that concept and make it available to residents generally. Because those are the kind of questions I get frequently as I talk to people. So,
But you do a good job on the Friday.
Yep.
As it is well written.
Very
and I
helpful.
think we look forward to it.
Yep.
So you know how to write, well, if not, too much, so you know how to, do an interesting, this is what's happened. It's been really good.
Yeah, I'm gonna second Kathy's suggestions, and I think the communications piece, I think we need to move beyond sort of the passive, it's on the website, to really have more of a push system where, we're actually pushing out information, and I think there's an MIS piece of that. So that, you can like push information to people who want particular types of information, whether it's, construction that's gonna happen on my street.
Yep.
Or, I'm interested in what the fire department's doing, or the rec department. And
So like as an example, I learned this from Tammy, one time, is just a simple thing where, DPW was doing it, that where you wanted to renew your transfer sticker, if you came in and walked in to do it, there's a form, and it did ask you, would you like to receive DPW updates? And if so, provide your part of it is just getting people's email
Mhm.
address. And now a lot of people are, hesitant to give out their email address because you get so much spam. That's the part of it. So that's to your point. There's a.
yeah, there's no perfect solution. But I think, pushing the information out rather than making, relying on people to find it is something that's important.
So I like the idea of, first of all, I think that the goal should be pretty, measurable, right? Some of them that are too kind of theoretical or conceptual are hard to measure, but I mean, here it's something we don't really have, and we do have it as one of our board goals of the. Again, I just keep coming, I refer to as the newsletter, but some regular form of communication. I guess here we're talking about an external communication. Yeah,
Right,
taking
yep.
kind of the internal updates we have and making it more just regular. All right. So is that something we think is all? If there's gonna be 2, that should be one of them?
I would try it. I can't tell you how much when I see that in the inbox, I look forward to reading it. It's really wild.
Why are we just doing 2?
Because I think that's.
That's
the
how
term
we
of
had
the
done it
contract.
before.
Literally?
It was
Yeah.
2 and 2.
I like 3.
All right, well, let's look at what the.
What could they be?
You know,
I mean,
like I said,
I'm,
it's up to you.
I think Kathy's too about the DPW and the technology or keepers, maybe add the communication
So
piece
the,
to
the
that.
technology thing, this is something that's depends on funding and
Not-
some other very.
Not necessarily. Yeah. To some degree, it depends on funding, but again, simply using the expertise of the technology committee is the key point there. It's not just the cloud, there are a variety of other things. Cybersecurity, for example, has been a hot topic.
Mhm.
And I think there's been some differences of opinion between Jay and the technology committee about what needs to be done on some of that stuff. So somehow bringing those thoughts together to create consensus, I think is the task in that.
I wrote down 9 that we said, and I think 4 of them are really related, which is this idea of customer service, pushing information out, communicating better. And of course, that's one of the goals here that Andrew and Marguerite have been assigned. So it's all related. So that to me is one big goal that everybody seemed to want to try to see if we can find a way to do more than we currently do. So
So just as a reference point, I'm looking at what I think is the operative.
Salient, yeah.
Yeah. Annually, the board and the town administrator shall mutually define the goals and objectives which they determine necessary for the proper operation of the town and the attainment of the board's policy objectives, and shall further establish a general priority among those various goals and objectives reduced to writing. Goals shall be added by the end of every fiscal year for the following year as an appendix, which shall be an addendum to this. So I guess we didn't do it before the.
Yeah,
We're close.
We didn't-
never
we're close.
formally-
yeah, but we didn't even do it last year, so we're doing better.
And I looked and I didn't see a requirement that it's 4, but that in the model,
Mhm.
when this first came, it was 4. And I mean, it does say that we should rank them.
With that small a number, I don't.
Yeah.
feel compelled to
I
rank
prefer to
particularly.
just stick to 4. That's my own preference.
If I had to give up one of Kathy's, I'd give up the DPW integration then.
Oh, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I think that is so crucial.
I think technology and
What we've been through
communication.
the last few years, I think that was good. Technology, I think is crucial. The agile thing, it's goal here anyway. We're gonna work on this, so it doesn't have to be Mark that,
But the communication and newsletters.
yeah, so that to me is that
already done.
all of you said that, so.
So that's already done.
I mean, and I do agree that, 3 of the, I had 8 that I wrote down, and 3 of those do fall under the communication piece. So I think that, that's obviously
So then,
something
but
that can be.
of the goals that you had, I forget what.
The financial review is gonna be done the DOR,
And-
so
And the
I'm
employment book.
fine taking that one off. I know you're gonna be involved, Mark, but to me, that's more of maybe a Brian, and a Carla. You'll be involved, but they've got to be really involved. So yes, you're gonna be involved. It's gonna get done, but I'm not sure I would call that a goal. Handbook,
I'm not sure I agree, but
well, I'm not
okay.
gonna,
Yeah, man,
I'm not gonna
it's
push
up
too
to
hard.
Mark. He's
Yeah.
got to choose his, yeah. So Kathy, what are you saying? We ought to have the.
I think we absolutely need the
IT,
DPW super,
Yeah.
number one, integration,
So
yeah. And then the IT, I think is so important to go to the next level, including specifically getting on the cloud.
And then the communication one is covered by our
So
goals.
you say getting on the cloud is this. There are differences though about the public safety versus just, are you talking about like just our
Anything,
town?
Our information.
I don't want to get in the weeds as far as what you can do.
Right.
We know that there may be, we were told that the dispatch stuff couldn't go to the cloud. I think that's changed now. And plus the regionalization would change it anyway. So anything that can go to the cloud without being specific, we should have a plan for by the year from now to either have that process started or at least have the plan solidified. We're ready to do it.
But the cloud is not the only dimension of that one.
No,
It
we
is,
we
you
want
know,
IT,
working
we
with
want
MTC.
MTC to
So-
truly use their talents and find a way for Jay to really work with them and feel comfortable and secure So that relationship is really tight and we get we get the best out of both.
I don't want to lose sight though of the external communication.
But that's already in our goals here. I think that is covered in a variety of ways through our goals. So I think we keep after that one collectively.
So if you're saying only 4 and you want to use Mark's 2, right? So we only have 2
But what I guess what I'm driving at is I'm trying to, your two again were,
personnel handbook.
Yeah.
And the
DOR review.
financial DOR review.
okay,
And I said, I'd rather that one not be there, but Mark wants it there, so I think that's his
okay.
prerogative.
So then ours, I would go with the external newsletter and DPW. That's my own view, but I know you.
I'm not giving
two
up
of
on the
you-
IT one, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
We've been talking about the cloud for,
I'm not
we've
either.
got to get this
Yeah.
done. So I can't give up on that one. I don't see anything wrong with doing 5, Andrew, just let's do 5.
The other one Mark had was the employee handbook.
Yep. Yep.
Is that essential?
Well, that's the,
It's his choice. I
Yeah,
think
that.
That's useful.
And that was a select board goal, you
Yeah.
know, at one point, but again, this is, you know, the personnel board, you know, is favorable to
Yeah.
looking to, you know, getting this done. We've started that process with Labor Council. And, I think that this is beneficial for, you know, for allowing personnel board and me as the personnel director to be a little bit more nimble in responding to things instead of having to say, you know what? We got to wait another 11 months till we get to town meeting until we can make that change in the bylaw. Because we don't have the latitude to do what we, you know, what we should be able to do.
Or even wait till the next personnel board meeting to get an answer to a question.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely,
Operationally much.
absolutely. So,
I think that's a good one.
you know, look, I mean, I'm fine with 5. You know, if you wanna, you know, go with, you know, you want to go with the 5, the 2, I have the communications, the DPW and, you know, and the IT.
so is the goal for the IT thing, like by the end of the year, you know, develop a transition plan that is supported by.
Not even
So-
transition plan, operating policies that both MTC
Yeah.
and Jay and Mark believe is working effectively. Take advantage of everybody's relative skills there to work together collaboratively.
The goal for MTC was always to be a resource to make the IT manager successful.
Right.
Right.
That's what we want. That's what we want.
And that's, you know, and that's what, you know, we've been working towards. I think, you know, we do have some financial resources that have been allocated through town meeting, you know, in the past year, you know, to start working towards the path for the cloud. But I think I do agree that we need to have something a little better defined
Mhm.
and something with some more measurable, you know, timelines. So, you know, that absolutely makes sense. So.
So is that it? That's
You're
fine.
doing like this with the, I don't know. if that
No,
makes
I'm not sorry, no, sorry, I'm not.
So it sounds like are the 5 that we have. The personnel handbook.
I'll put them together.
Okay,
I'll send, you know,
That's what I was
I'll
gonna
send them out
suggest.
to everybody. Yep.
all right, okay,
Good.
okay. The next item on the agenda is discussion of proposed October 17, 2013. Sorry,
23.
town meeting. Looks like Mark and team put together a list of the ideas that have been talked about so far, the potential. Mark and his team have put together, we've just circulated to us of the proposed articles for a special town meeting. I'll just read them. I know everyone's, they're in front of them, but just so everyone, in no particular order. Okay, these are in no particular order. Establish a time frame for the expiration of special permits to be in compliance with Mass General Law, Section 9. Allow moderator to serve on ad hoc committees with town meeting approval. Allow moderator to serve on tricentennial committee. I guess those are did Paul Semino, okay. Article to address the format of town meeting. Who has proposed that, or is this just a?
This is something I think that was discussed, probably in the late stages of the last board. Currently we have a town meeting on a
After the
Saturday.
one AM town meeting,
We
yes.
we start at, 1 in the afternoon, we go until 5, we take a break, we come back at 7, we go to 11. The crowd you have at 1 is never the same crowd you have at 7. And trying to find a way to, I think, streamline that process a little bit more. Again, it was something I think the board had talked about, that board, not this board. But whether or not we want to take a look at how we do, I think everyone is pretty consolidated, at the end of March, on the Saturday, but do we want to look at the structure of how the Saturday is set up?
Maybe start earlier, for example.
But that's something
Yes.
where no one has put together a draft, no one has put together
No.
a committee.
No,
Okay.
this
But-
always
but the
results
only-
in
But if you
being,
did it, if you did something for a special town meeting, it's obviously a bylaw change. The bylaw would be approved by the Attorney General. You'd have it in place to take effect for next annual. If you wait for the annual, then obviously you'd have,
Wait a year. Yeah.
another year, correct?
All right, the next one, phase one funding, $213,000 for design and permitting for replacement of 2 Willow Street culverts. One has collapsed. 6, deferred repairs to fire tower, $110K, and ambulance defibrillators, $100,000. 7, update to sign bylaw, that's from planning, because in anticipation of this meeting, I reached out, first off, we reached out to every board to see whether anyone had ideas for potentially coming forward. Heard back from planning with update to sign bylaw and accessory apartments by right. I think, and I don't want to speak for her, but I think the chair didn't think either of those are so, glaring that they would attract a lot of people to come to a meeting. 8, repurposing current Lundblad engineering funds to construction funds to provide the required match for the dog park grant. 9, creation of recreation facility maintenance revolving fund generated by field and facility permits. 10, accessory apartments by right zoning. 11, appropriation of opiate settlement funds. There's nothing there that really stands out at you as something that is gonna generate a lot of excitement. And a lot of these things, although it would be nice to have them taken care of earlier rather than later, they do seem like things that would be possible consent agenda articles for a spring annual town meeting. I also talked to Jim earlier today, like ballpark, what does it cost to put together a fall town meeting? His view is at least $12,000. It is in the budget to have 2. So it's already budgeted, but it is, if you don't do it, you save $12,000.
When do we have to decide this?
Kind of now,
Pretty soon?
because
we don't meet again to August 7th.
we would be, if we said we're gonna do it, we're committing to doing, we're gonna have some irregular meetings and to get feedback from other boards. Some of them are not gonna meet very frequently, particularly in August.
Yep.
So, like with the model of the downtown, so the last fall town meeting was a little regular because there was already, the reason why it was scheduled was the tree bylaw,
Yep.
which was already put together.
Yep.
The one before it was for the downtown
Downtown,
district,
yep.
which took a long time, like
Yep.
2 years.
It had a lot of.
And it was
interest.
repeatedly delayed. It was held on November 1st because it was gonna be in October and it was like pushed back to get more and more meetings to get a consensus on. So there's just a lot of work that goes into having a productive meeting and I'm
what-
not inclined to do it. That's my view.
We also
Yeah, my
agreed
question.
we weren't going to use a special to do financial stuff because the budget's already been passed. We've told the town what we think the estimated tax impact is of that budget. There's several things on here that would change that. Mr. Sabelli is still trying to get his 1/1/23 valuations done. He's nowhere near done. I talked to him today. So I would certainly not support the ones on here that involve changing the budget fiscal year 24. I don't see anything in here that is going to want people to come out. And yes, there's an out-of-pocket cost of $12,000, but it's, to me, the time that it takes to put together a town meeting between Mr. Purple's time, all of our time, all these special meetings, we have to kind of stop everything and then focus on this. So
Like-
I just don't see anything.
Like when we plan, okay, we put together this agenda, the next thing we do, put together a proposed agenda for the August meeting. I mean, what, it would be nice if we have a little bit of running room between now and starting a budget cycle. To start to some of these goals, start to think, okay, the August meeting, we're gonna pick off one of these goals and try to. Someone comes back and gives a report on it and because it takes work to.
Well, how many of these are actually, I mean, if they're not reasonably well developed at this point, then they're not ready for prime time.
I don't think any are well-developed.
No, I think that, you know, I'm not sure where some of the ones are in terms of, you know, the accessory apartments. I know that's something that
Yeah, it's not far.
you were looking at. You know, I know the moderator, the ones that the moderator wanted, and I see he's in the audience. I think those are fairly easy to put together. We've not talked specific about what we may want to do with town meeting format. So, and again, then you get into the ones where you're talking about funding. So not a lot of, I'm not aware that it's much, that where we are beyond what's on the page in front of you tonight. So.
Okay, so then with that, does anyone else have any other information about potential articles?
Well, there's, would be the one to, start the process of eliminating the, DPW advisory board.
Well, it's,
Public Works,
But
we really
it's
don't,
not that it's,
that's not town meeting's job here.
Well, town meeting has to pass a request for special legislation, I believe.
Do
I
they?
don't know.
I think Al's right, but.
Al is right.
Okay.
Okay.
I like the
They-
sound
they
of
need-
that.
So you, they need to give the select board the authority to petition the
Petition the
legislature, and
legislation.
then it's up to the board as to whether you're going to use that authority
Okay.
to actually do it.
There might be also a better idea of like by the spring after Bill is on board, having a better idea instead of just saying, we're gonna get rid of something, having another idea of what could be a way to
Yep.
have some type of a sounding board
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, I don't see.
You know,
compelling.
there's nothing to keep us from having a meeting in February. If
I mean, a special town meeting,
a special town meeting in February,
Okay,
other than
but that really gets.
blizzards.
Yeah, messed up with the budget process, for example. And,
We also had in the goal setting meeting, last year, one of the goals was have a fall town. It was to create a bylaw
Yeah.
that was gonna require, and we talked about it, we started to draft it. There are some towns that their bylaw requires you to have a fall town meeting, and Jay Tallerman said, why are you doing this? You don't, you know.
I don't think there's enough to warrant it. I don't think you'd get very many people attending.
And it'd be a pretty, probably, you know, unrepresented group
Very
if you did.
small.
Yeah.
So Mark, what do you think? The work is on you to get this done, so what do you think?
Well, I mean, beyond simply the cost. I think the other thing, just, you know, from consideration of my time and staff time is that, you know, in September, we want to kick off our budget
right,
process.
yeah.
We want to kick off everything that's going on. And if we're trying to do that at the same time, we're trying to put together and finalize a warrant and get everything finalized and reviewed in committees and council and printing and the like. It does make it a little cumbersome. So then you come out of October after the town meeting, and really we should be further along in the process than we actually would be. We did have a meeting the other day with the financial with staff, with Brian and Carla, myself, Ms. Cook and Andrew Pfaff, just to talk about, let's set a process in place and how we're going to do what we're going to do for budget, so that we agree up front. I think that is gonna trying to do that is gonna traipse a little bit on that process.
And I've always thought the concept for a special town meeting in the fall was to take something that is a big issue that was going to take a lot of time and conversation out of the annual town meeting, so the annual town meeting could deal with the budget and other related issues there. So without that sort of, keystone event, if you will, for a special town meeting, that takes a lot of the value out of that process, I think, so.
So prior to me
Yeah,
coming to
see.
Southborough, I remember when I got here and I was like, okay, so when is your annual meeting? Well, it's in May. When's your fall meeting? We don't have fall meetings. We have one meeting a year. And then we got into the public safety and then remember Steve Moriali became moderator. He had 3 town meetings in a year and his only year as moderator. And we,
It's a perfect example of something that was huge.
well, exactly. It
The
was a lot
road,
of the big-
84 Main Street.
Right.
So those were big, big things.
But I think it gave people to start to think about, well, maybe maybe we do have a fall meeting we have. So I really think there needs to be, a decision. Do we want to have one? And do we want to set up certain parameters around it? Or do we simply want to, I think has been expressed tonight too, simply, do special town meetings when you need them for, significant issues?
No, I think we're gonna have a significant issue coming up in the next year, which is the MWRA Communities Act,
MBTA.
Excuse me, the MBTA. Yeah.
Yeah,
Somebody-
and they're planning on doing that in March. And if they need to, having a special, if it doesn't work out in March, then they would have the fallback to have a
Yeah.
special. So you're right, that's coming. But they're not, they know they're not ready this fall for that.
All right, so it sounds like there's a consensus to not have a fall town meeting in October. All right,
Mhm.
you think we can take a formal vote on it, or? I don't think so, but
Trying to remember whether or not you took a formal vote to establish October 17th for a special meeting.
I mean, there was a,
We agreed
I
to
don't
it.
remember.
I don't know if we voted.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure you need a vote.
And should we do one just to cover the bases?
Sure, it's belt and suspenders.
Okay,
as
you
always.
want to make the motion then?
Me?
Yes.
I move that we not have a special town meeting fall, the October 17th date that we established previously.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, so we have come to the end of our agenda. The last item is public comment.
Thought of letting you off the hook, but anyway, Tim Woodland Road. I just had a thought in terms of. I had a thought in terms of your get rid of the Public Works Planning Board item. I really think you should take a broader look at the statute that was put in place to reorganize DPW and all that. Because it doesn't make sense for you folks to be the tree warden, for example. So, I mean, I really think you should take a broader view of what should DPW look like and what changes do you have to make to that? Because you want to do it once. You don't want to go to the legislature multiple times.
So that the special act 1991
One or
had
whatever it was.
multiple components to it. One of them was that. Okay.
Right, but you also consolidated the cemetery and got rid of the water board and made the tree warden the select board and, all that other stuff. And it just seems to me that if you're going to go to the legislature and say, I want to get rid of this nuisance board that isn't working terribly well, you probably ought to also fix whatever else
That's
you
a good
can.
point.
Yep, good point.
All right, Mrs. Shimkus.
Thank you. Karen Shimkus, Lindbergh Road. I know if I was sitting in your seat, I would want to know what I'm about to tell you. So, and I would appreciate it. But any rate, I wanted to go on record as a taxpayer and a resident to let you know that there are possible issues, questions and concerns with regard to the appraisals that were done on St. Mark's Triangle property. I, as a professional appraiser and have been a past president of a multi-state professional appraisal organization, am acutely aware of the discipline and due diligence that needs to be done when doing this kind of work. It's very specialized. These appraisals were just done
just completed and there is no awareness on the part of the public about these appraisals. I'd like to know how this happened, that this certain individual was hired, and if there was any due diligence done, but I wanted to call your attention to the fact that he has been under disciplinary action by the state and lost his license for a while, suspended by the state and fined. He was sued by the town of Peabody, so I don't know if you want to speak with the mayor to see what happened there, but you can certainly look at the local press. Generally speaking, when these types of issues surface, it does raise questions and concerns about possibly about ability. But under these circumstances, again, generally speaking, you would absolutely want a third party objective review. It's again, very specialized kind of valuation work. I, having sit on top of the mountain for a while and am aware of who's out there appraising, would probably look to the qualifications of somebody who was a past president of, say, for instance, the International Right of Way. You know, it's a great organization and specializes in this kind of work. This is just suggestions and food for thought, but you know, as someone opined at town meeting, if you're digging a hole, stop digging. And you certainly don't jump in the hole. There's a lot to object to that I've already spoken to. You know, the appraisals being done out of public eye. The public is not aware of the math. The PNS expired. I know as a voter, with no extension, and as a real estate professional, commercial real estate professionals, there's no extension language in the PNS, it expired. Now, I know you turned around and relied on town meeting authority, but I didn't authorize you to do that and to continue on. And I definitely wouldn't have voted for this deal. I would not have given legal authority as a voter to continue on. I would have fallen back on the position of the 2021 town meeting, which is not granting permission. This to me is a purely political project, unnecessary moving of a road.
And I know you've already said
Yeah,
some of those points.
but the town was billed for parking lot design before the project even was brought to the Board of Selectmen. I think that could have been in a full year beforehand. So as a voter, and hopefully one of the more informed ones who tries to stay up to speed, and this is just sincere advice, you know, I would look at, all the proper due diligence first, you know, including whether or not this is a cemetery.
Right.
Thank
you.
But at any rate, you know, this to me is a tail wagging the dog situation on this deal at the expense of public trust. And then the last point I wanted to make was, I understand there's some differences of opinion between this board and the planning board. And you have town council behind that. And in my view, he's been weaponized unnecessarily. This has got to end. They should have the right to have independent counsel and not be at the political will or whim of the Board of Selectmen. I'm sure you'd appreciate that if you were sitting on planning board with the task and job that they have to do. So when you're mixing roads with kids, what's to stop a kid from running into these roads? You unnecessarily move this road, made it closer to an intersection. Okay, what in the landscape does, no one sitting on these boards has any experience whatsoever in designing a park. So I just because something's legal and Jay Talaman, which everyone, you know, has been turning to, says I found a way, common sense dictates. Common sense as the boss, you're the boss, right, of the council. You would say, wait a minute, maybe legally I can do it, but I shouldn't do it. It should be
I know
reviewed.
we try to keep these comments.
Yes.
3 minutes, you're now a little over 5 minutes.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to kind of sum it up?
Yes, I would say slow down.
Okay.
The minute I heard big R, little r, and that rationalization, that person would have been fired.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
One item, we received Margarita brought this to my attention that there is an issue with, contamination at no? Okay. Okay.
All right,
Anyway, thank you.
thank you. Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
Motion, meeting adjourned. Thank you.